Welcome to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Good afternoon. It is currently 12:57 p.m. And of course, today is the 30th of April 2025. How are you doing this beautiful Wednesday? All right. It is another cabinet meeting for President Donald Trump and his members of cabinet. So we are going to listen in right now. This is live and it's been going on for about 1 hour. You know how Trump does his things. He takes a long time, especially when it pertains to being transparent and also showing the American people that this is what we're doing, this is what I am working on, and this is how much intensity, this is how much focus we have on this issue. Trump administration is the most transparent administration. Some people say no, some people say yes, but for the most part, they've been transparent because they've been showing these meetings live, like literally live for everybody to see. So yeah, I think it takes a lot to be that confident to put yourself out there while you're negotiating, having this, you know, intricate issue come up and you have world leaders in the Oval Office or in this boardrooms where he's always having serious conversations. But it takes a lot to do what he's doing, and a lot of people admire him for it. But with that being said, let's listen in right now.
Many are saying is the most successful. What was that noise? That must have been Elon. Was that? Who was it?
Bobby's phone was quacking.
Strange. That's all right. We've just completed what many consider to be the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and we're just getting started. Things are happening that are amazing, and I would not say it if it weren't fact. In a few short weeks, we've achieved the most secure border in American history by far, 99.9%, which is a number that nobody thought was doable. Biden thought you had to go back to the legislature to get legislation passed in order to create a secure border. You didn't. You just had to have the right president and the right people working it. Congratulations, by the way, and to Tom. For 2 months in a row, we have set the all-time records for the lowest number of illegal border crossings ever recorded. The number of illegal border crossers released into the United States is down 99.999%. That is usually 100%. So I think it's an amazing tribute, and Christy, congratulations, and Tom and everybody else. It's an amazing job, actually, and it was done very quickly. We officially designated Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and we're expelling these monsters from our country rapidly and working with the Department of Justice. Pam, you're doing fantastic. Your people are amazing. We're having some judge problems. Everybody's reading. We're having some judges that don't like killers, murderers being thrown out of the country, so I don't know what their problem is, but we have little difficulty. We won on the basis of a great border and of getting criminals out of our country. That was why we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won everything. Every metric we won by a lot. It was a massive victory, and we won, I think, largely because of this issue. I put this issue as number one issue. And they don't want us to do what we're supposed to do, and I don't think that can be. And I hope the Supreme Court is going to fully understand what's going on. We have to get the criminals out of our country, and that's the basis under which we won the election. Core GDP, and this is, you probably saw some numbers today, and I have to start off by saying that's Biden. That's not Trump, because we came in on January, this is the quarterly numbers, and we came in and I was very against everything that Biden was doing in terms of the economy, destroying our country. in so many ways. Not only at the border was more obvious, but we took over his mess in so many different ways. Core GDP, removing distortions from imports, inventories, and government spending, was up plus 3% when you add it. We had numbers that, despite what we were handed, we turned them around, and we were getting them really turned around. Gross domestic investment was a whopping 22%. Now, that is a number that people are coming in at numbers. For instance, I just walked in, I heard Samsung is now, because of the tariffs, they're going to build massive facilities in the United States. If we didn't do the tariffs, they wouldn't be doing that. So it takes a little while to get those facilities built, but they're coming in with big numbers. They're all coming in with big numbers. We have more money being spent than at any time in the history of our country. We're up to close to $8 trillion, I think I can say. And really, it's going to be a lot higher than that. Those are just the ones that we know about. 8 trillion. I'm not going to say, but I'm not sure if Biden did $1 trillion for 4 years, 1 trillion. But we're at 8 trillion for 2 months, because let's give us a pass on the first month. We were sort of getting a little bit used to things, right? But after 2 months, we have $8 trillion. There's never been a number like that. And that includes chip companies, car companies, every form of manufacturing, high-tech companies. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. So $8 trillion. I can talk about gross domestic product, gross domestic investment. I can talk about a lot of things, but to me, the biggest numbers, the kind of numbers that are, and these people are coming in. Our Secretary of Commerce spent the weekend. He went down to Arizona to see what was happening with the biggest chip company in the world. And he said, Howard, he said, you've never seen anything like it. Do you want to just describe what you saw?
So they're investing $165 billion in 1,100 acres in Arizona, and they're building the highest tech chip manufacturing, semiconductors, and 4,000 employees. You know, American tradecraft, right? Technicians doing every kind of work. The classic foundation of America is building it. They had 14,000 people. They're expecting 40,000 people to build the rest of their plants and to employ 20,000 people for the rest of the time.
And
this is all driven.
You never saw a site like that.
And this is all driven by your tariff policies. No chance this be happening without you.
It's going to be about 40% of the chip market from that one section, and this is the biggest chip maker. They have 99% of the market. They come from Taiwan, and unlike the CHIP Act, which was done by Biden, where they hand everybody billions of dollars, the thing they don't need is money. They got plenty of money. What they need is an incentive to come in, and the tariffs, they're building because of the tariffs. If without the tariffs, and I like to say they're building because of November 5th, the election, and the tariffs, but I'm going to be a little more blunt. They're building because of the tariffs, and November 5th gave them the tariffs. So it's amazing when you look. And these are not companies that go out and say, well, we're going to build, we have to go get our financing. Let's go. Like we would, in New York, everybody would look, you'd get a building site, and then you'd look around for money, you'd look around for financing for 6 months, you'd get your financing. You'd build your building, the market would be good, you'd make money, the market would be bad, it wouldn't be so pretty, you'd have to negotiate, This is different. These people have so much money, they don't know what to do. I asked Howard, did they finance it? No, they do it through cash. And they say that site, and they just started, they just announced it like a month ago, and they've already started. He said, I've never seen a site like it, so big. So, you're talking about essentially a $50 billion building. Now, if you build a warehouse for $50 million, that's a big warehouse, Scott. But a $50 billion building, that's a lot. They're building the electric, they've become a utility. And I'm giving them the right to become. They're going to build their own electric, they're going to build their own electricity, which they need tremendous amounts of electricity. They're going to build it themselves. Anything they have left over, they'll hook that into the grid. But the grid is old and they're unreliable, and bad things can happen to grids. I said, if you want, you can hook into the grid, but that's a little bit risky. Or you can build your own electricity and become your own utility. And they, I think in all cases, are deciding to do that. So it's very exciting, and we have a lot of things going. We took over on January 20th. These are quarterly reports. We took over on January 20th. The tariffs haven't kicked in yet. I know that, and I don't want this to happen, but I know that China is doing very poorly right now. I just saw some reports coming out, and I don't want that to happen to China. I like the president a lot, President Xi. I don't want it to happen. I was actually saddened to hear it, but they are getting absolutely hammered in China. And, they're sending boats, the biggest boats in the world, carrying cargo like nobody's ever seen before. These are the biggest boats in the world, biggest cargo ships in the world. And they're coming and they're turning around in the Pacific Ocean. They're doing a big U-turn and going back because they don't want the goods because 145% tariff. But at a certain point, I hope we're going to make a deal with China. We're talking to China, but their factories are closing all over China because we're not taking their product. We don't want their product unless they're going to be fair with us. And that includes intellectual property and other things. There are a lot of things far beyond just buy, sell. So we'll see what happens. But, I was not, because somebody said, well, were you happy? I said, I am not happy. I want China to do well. I want every country to do well. But they have to treat us fairly also. So with that, I think we're going to maybe go around, and we have some letters where the secretaries and people around the table are making statements about how they're doing and what's happening. And I could start with Pete on the left because he's my least controversial person at the table. No, they don't know how good he is. So we'll go around the table and you can hear it. And these are cabinet meetings where they're very open and transparent. And I can guarantee you Biden didn't do this. He didn't do this. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, Mr. President, I think we're controversial because we're over the target. And like so many things, Mr. President, you inherited a demoralized military that couldn't recruit, that was perceived as weak after what happened in Afghanistan and elsewhere because of Joe Biden. And what we have seen since your election and the inauguration has been nothing short of a recruiting renaissance. Decades, it hasn't been decades since we've seen this kind of recruiting in the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force. The men and women of America want to join the United States military led by President Donald Trump.
And the police, by the way.
Absolutely.
And fire. I always mention the fire, but the police and fire. But the police and fire likewise they have waiting lists now. And 6 months ago it was a disaster. Go ahead.
Truly historic. We can barely absorb the volume and retention as well. Men and women in the military who don't want to get out now that they have a real commander-in-chief. We're reinforcing standards. We're going to be fit, not fat, in our formations. We welcome back all the folks that were forced out because of the COVID mandate. We've ripped wokeness out of the military, sir, DEI, trans, and it's Fort Benning and Fort Bragg again at the DOD. We're rebuilding the military, sir. The Golden Dome is well underway. F-47, reassuring allies and deterring enemies. We found nearly $6 billion in DOGE savings that we're going to reinvest, including $50 billion from the Biden administration focused on things like climate that have nothing to do with lethality and warfighting. And we will have, as you said, sir, the first $1 trillion budget that we plan to spend wisely on behalf of our warfighters. From day one, sir, we've helped get 100% operational control of the border, coming alongside DHS and CBP. Right. We've got 11,000 troops on the border who now, because of the new national defense area, sir, can help detain illegals at the border and hand them over to CBP. It used to be if you saw camouflage on the border, they could hold binoculars, and that's it. Now we can detain and assist, and we're going to get 100% operational control of that border. Our NATO allies know they have to step up. The Houthis in the Middle East are feeling the weight of American power, and we're deterring communist China. So because of your leadership, sir, I believe we're making the military great again, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Howard?
So I have the pleasure of running the Investment Accelerator, which gets to recruit these companies. And you've never seen anything like the companies committed to building in America. Technology companies have committed over $2.5 trillion to build in America based on your tariffs, right? Sovereign countries, all backing, the whole Middle East and all these countries backing their sovereign wealth funds. They all want to invest in America, and they're coming in, again, over $3 trillion committed. So just those two topics, you're at $5.5 trillion, and then you've got the whole pharma industry knows it's got to come home because America pays for all the drugs of the world. So the pharmauticals have to come home, right? Autos coming home, industrials coming home. So we've got to train, and your great Secretary of Labor together and Secretary of Education together, we're going to train the workforce to build America. It's unbelievable. We've got so much, as I travel around, the attention on the Trump Gold Card. I mean, it makes me very popular. Last night, I was out to dinner, and someone came up and said, can I buy 10? And how do I buy 10? And I'm like, that's pretty good. It's $50 million for dinner. So, I was paying for my dinner. The External Revenue Service, right? You've got the tariffs and the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars coming in to build the External Revenue Service. That our objective, of course, is to replace the Internal Revenue Service and let those outside countries trading with us, let them pay their fair share to America. And then, of course, you got rid of de minimis. And what happened is these foreign countries were sending in little packages for free and knocking out our mom and pop businesses across America. You put an end to it, and you're going to rebuild the mom and pop and the small business of America. You're their president, and I'm proud to support you.
It's very important. De minimis. It's a big deal. It's a big scam going on against our country, against really small businesses, and we put an end to it.
Mr. President, so CAFE standards, we have the fuel economy standards on vehicles that are going to go to 50 miles per gallon. We are going to rewrite those standards, bring it down to something that's far more reasonable. Elon's fine with that, I hope. But it's going to drive down. It's going to drive down the price of a car in America, making cars more affordable for families. Also, Biden had the social cost of credit when we build infrastructure, roads, and bridges, adding 3 to 5% on infrastructure costs. We've gotten rid of the social cost of carbon, driving down the cost to build roads and bridges across the country. We have what is called follow the law. So we have so many states and municipalities that don't follow the law. So whether it's DEI, discriminating against Americans, whether they give illegals driver's license, or their sanctuary cities or states, if you don't follow the law, if you're giving license to illegals, if you're having DEI policies, we're not going to fund your projects. So you got to certify in your state or in your city to get road and bridge money or rail money that you're actually following the law, which includes the executive orders from you, Mr. President. We're cutting back funding. We send research money, Mr. President, to universities to do research on more equitable and sustainable transportation systems. Projects that'll use data and public opinion to inform policy and infrastructure and technology benefiting diverse communities, including women and gender nonconforming people. Just stupid wastes of money. We're pulling that money back from universities. We should do good research if we're doing research in universities. And then one last thing, air traffic control. We don't have enough air traffic controllers. We're about 3,000 short. We're working on an agreement with the union, so when controllers become retirement eligible, we're going to cut a deal to try to get them to stay longer, to stay in the tower. And then we have a plan to put more butts in seats in Oklahoma City, so we can get more students through the academy and into towers as well. It's going to take us a while to do that, to train them up, but we're in the process before our 4 years are done. Well before that, we're going to be at full capacity.
Sean, you want to tell them about, I think we have to bring it up, we have very obsolete equipment for air traffic controllers. The equipment, the towers have horrible equipment. It's been renovated for years. The money they spent over the last 4 years, this Buttigieg did a horrible job. They wasted billions and billions of dollars hooking up wire equipment to non-wire equipment to satellite equipment, and a third-grade student would know it doesn't work. You can't work it. They wasted tens of billions of dollars. But we want to put a brand new air traffic control system in, and you might want to describe that, please.
You and I have talked about this. It's a state-of-the-art system, envy of the world, and listen, our system is safe, but you would have hoped someone would have seen that there's a problem with fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters coming in at DCA. Someone should have seen that before we lost almost 70 lives. It's our job to look and see that we have an aging infrastructure around air traffic control. And so if we don't build a brand new system, there's going to be failures and people will lose their lives. And so we need the help of Congress to help fund this, but it's going to be all brand new. And after you build a brand new system, we have the bedrock and the foundation to to actually build on top of it. But no one has done this, Mr. President. There's Band-Aid fixes that have happened over the course of 20 years. You can't have a Band-Aid fix. It doesn't get done. It has to be brand new. The technology, it looks like it's out of a 1980s movie. Old computers, floppy disks. We're using copper wires, not fiber. So there are great solutions we have available that, and by the way, everyone's sick of their delayed flights or their canceled flights. We have more capacity in the airspace, and if we build this brand new system, what you'll have is more efficiency in the airspace, and it will be safer. So the economy will be stronger. We can have more flights and less delays. So I appreciate your support on that, Mr. President.
Rebuilding that is very important. You wouldn't have had the helicopter crashing into the plane at 400 feet up when it's supposed to be 200 feet. That would have, bells and whistles would have been gone over, and you would have heard the screaming equipment saying there's a problem coming up in 15 seconds. You got to do something about it right now. And it would have also sent the word right into the helicopter, because I guess you'll be doing the full report on that. But it was pretty obvious what happened. Right. And they were supposed to be at 200 feet. They were at 400 feet, and a terrible thing. And that wouldn't have happened if we had the right equipment. If we had the right equipment, you would have heard bells and whistles going off, and it would have alerted them long before that would have happened. 2 minutes before, it would have had a lot of time. So we have to do this. We have no choice, and we're going to do it. We're going to be very proud of it. They did old equipment in new equipment, and you can't hook in old equipment to new equipment because it's different. Some is satellite and some is ground. The satellite doesn't work. This man would know that better than anybody, but you can't hook up a satellite system to a ground wired system. And if you do, you're wasting a lot of money. They spend billions. This is Buttigieg. They spent billions and billions of dollars trying to patch a system together. They had hundreds of different contractors, and the contractors were all fighting with each other. We're going to have one great big contractor, like the Great Big Beautiful Bill, which is going along very well. I guess I like Great Big Beautiful, but we're going to have one Great Big Beautiful contractor, whether it's maybe Raytheon, maybe IBM, maybe it could be any one of 4 or 5 different groups, but you put one in charge. They're very big, very powerful monetarily, and they give you a guarantee, and they hook up everything. They do every single thing. So they're responsible for the digging of the ditches and the fiber and every single element. And it's one system that's hooked in. It's not all these hodgepodge systems that don't work together, and it's just a shame. I mean, it's basic construction, but it's complex stuff, and there are a few companies that do it unbelievably well, and we're going to have that. So, good job, Sean. I know that's your big project.
And Mr. President, no one has done it because it is complex. It's hard to do because as you're building a brand new system, you have planes taking off and landing, and so because it's complex, no one has done it. And you've given the directive and the support to make this happen. So
well,
thank
ours
you.
is going to be an all-new system. It's going to all hook up. It's going to be the same tower is going to have the same equipment. And all towers all over the country, all over the world actually, mostly, are going to be hooked in together. And when there's a problem, when planes are too close, you will hear a sound that's very ear-shattering. And I've heard it. And it's amazing. I mean, honestly, it's amazing. It's real genius stuff. And we didn't do that. What we did was just waste money. You could have just thrown it right out the window. What they did in this last 4 years was disgraceful. Whether it was the border or this, you can name 100 different things. The worst administration ever. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And Mr. President.
Secretary, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you. And I think one of the things that I want people to understand about the VA is we're part of the national security interests you have, and you've laid the groundwork for that, the leadership in making sure that with the Secretary of Defense and myself, we take care of veterans on 2 ends. One when they come in and one when they serve and they've earned the benefits that we have. And one of the things is if we're not doing our job on our end, then the recruitment and all goes down on the other end because we have a full spectrum. That's what leadership is about. What we found, and speaking the last 4 years, is we found an administration that wanted to throw money and people at problems, but they didn't want to put leadership in. They just put money and people at it, and we saw wait times stay the same. We saw issues of suicide rates, death by suicide, not change. We saw a homelessness issue barely go down. We saw disability claims skyrocket when you took place over 250,000 back dislodge, which we're already bringing down almost 40,000 so far just in the last couple of months. But we've also put back what you, and I was in Congress when this happened, and I was glad to see it. The Mission Act is back front and center at the VA. We're actually doing community care. We're actually giving the veteran the choice that they've earned and they've deserved, whether they can get their VA care inside our facilities or in the community. It's their choice. It's VA care. We're going to give them the highest quality care wherever they want to go. Also, we're expanding out options for treatments and others for those that are new. We're experimenting and looking at new counseling ideas, all new drug techniques that we can help with PTSD, TBI, the things that are affecting our veterans right now. But also, we've taken the leadership to take people and bring them back into work where they're actually communicating. They're back in our offices. We put thousands of people back in. We're processing more claims daily than we were in the last little bit, hit 1 million before has ever happened, and we're actually bringing it down. And I've actually taken our deputy secretary, and he is actually handling a strike force now to bring down that disability claim, plus our regular work that we're having done. We've also taken almost $300+ million and taken it out of contracts that we've all heard about so far. We were doing contracts for meeting notes and PowerPoints, and if our folks didn't know how to do meeting notes and PowerPoint, go online and learn yourself. We're not going to pay for it anymore. And we took $360 million and put it back into community care and also our health records management system that we have. We've opened 6 new facilities just in the last little bit so all the media who wants to talk about how we're hurting healthcare, we just opened 6 new facilities. By the way, thank you, you're welcome. As we go from that, we continue. We've also took $11.6 billion in ceiling values of contracts and terminated that we did not need, resulting in significant cost avoidance for the future, but also still maintaining the ability to take care of our patients and also our disability benefits. We've also gotten unity again. We did away with $14 million in DEI spending. We've ended gender dysphoria treatments. We phased that out. All directed the savings from that go to paralyzed veterans and amputees. We've also continued to work toward, as you've, in anti-Semitism and also anti-Christian bias that we saw. The biggest thing though, Mr. President, I wanted to state, is you told me when you said for me to take this job, you said take care of my veterans. Well, we've done something in taking that step forward. The veteran is back first at the VA. The VA is not about itself anymore. We're not a self-feeding animal. It's about a service organization that takes care of one of the best we have, and that's our veterans. And that way, Mr. President, we're just getting started.
Thank you, Doug. How are you doing with the suicide rates?
We're getting, it's tough, Mr. President. That's something that we're looking at. This is something that we've had $588 million has been spent over the last, especially 4 or 5 years to be prevention, and yet the numbers stayed at 17 or 21, wherever you want to have it. We're now opening that back up, taking in nonprofits. We're bringing in others who have things that are actually looking at. I've worked with Secretary Kennedy and others on the idea of we're opening up the possibility of psychedelic treatment and others that give us an opportunity. We got to research it, make sure it's good, but it's opening up that possibility. And I think, again, veterans are understanding now that we're putting them first. When I go to these hospitals, they're actually coming up saying thanks. We're back in where we need to be, and we're seeing a workforce develop. So suicide is going to come down. It's also going to take some transition stuff that your Secretary of Defense has been very helpful on. We've got to transfer them out of the military so they come to us better, but we're working on that.
Good. Very good. Thank you. Jameson?
Mr. President, it may come as a surprise, but this has been the busiest 100 days in the history of the
By the way, in history. You know, this is the biggest deal ever done. If you sold IBM, ExxonMobil, and 5 other companies together, it's peanuts compared to what we're doing. This is the biggest deal ever done financially in the history of the world. And I think we're doing great. You're going to see some big, big results. Go ahead.
And I'll just say something that Secretary Duffy said in his context, because it's complex, no one has done it. So this is something, a reordering of global trade that hasn't happened since the end of World War II. And it's long overdue because we've seen manufacturing offshore under the old global trading system. With the net result of the global trading system is that all the manufacturing goes to Asia and other places. That's a system you have to replace, and that's what you're doing. They said you wouldn't be able to do global tariffs. We did it. They said everyone would retaliate. No one retaliated outside of China. They said no one would come to negotiate. We're talking to dozens of countries. They said no one would have offers. We have dozens of written offers. We have lots of countries in this week. This is like a break for me to come.
You have the list. You have the list of with all the countries that want to negotiate.
Sure.
They all
So
want to
this is-
negotiate. They want to make a deal.
don't zoom in on this. Yeah, this is like a tracker, right? We have all these columns of which countries have come in, when we started negotiations, who gave us an offer, are we in technical talks, and when do we expect to have deals done? Those are some weeks out, but we're working very quickly on this. Thanks to you.
Thank you, Jameson. You're going to have a lot of fun for the next 3 weeks.
Fun. It will be fun.
You have anything?
Yep, Mr. President, the last 4 years, the world experienced a total lack of zero leadership under Biden, and then we've had 100 days of your leadership with respect, with strength, starting with there'll be all hell to pay if you don't let our people go. Dozens, over 40 Americans have come home under your leadership. Far more terrorists are no longer threatening the homeland under your leadership, pulling all of these agencies together, including the evil individual responsible for the Abbey Gate bombing, and to sit with the 13 Gold Star families, and you showing that follow-up and that justice has been incredible. But pulling this great team together, Mr. President, everything from revitalizing shipyards to cyber to space, that takes this entire team working together. It's an honor to serve you in this administration, and I think the world is far better, far safer for it. Amen.
Thank you very much. The Abbey Gate is really important. This was a horrible thing. It destroyed the image, frankly, of the Biden administration. What happened there was a disgrace. It should have never happened, and Pam is working very much on prosecuting that person. We have the person, and he'll do well. I have no doubt about it. Thank you very much, Michael. So the CIA, I don't know, Radcliffe, I don't know if he's going to say anything. He's probably the one person here that's not allowed to talk about the great job he's done, but go ahead anyway.
Mr. President, as you know, at your direction, the CIA has deployed our unique covert action authorities in various places and continents to successfully advance your national security and foreign policy priorities, to advance peace, to end wars, to take terrorists off the battlefield, and to keep illicit drugs from coming into this country and harming Americans. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to detail your accomplishments in that regard, we can't do so in front of this crowd. But you and I both know, Mr. President, that you have had a profound positive impact on America's national security posture, and Americans are safer because of your leadership. What I can talk about publicly is, as has been mentioned, the CIA provided the intelligence that led to the apprehension of the Abbey Gate bomber, who is now being prosecuted by our great Attorney General and providing a measure of justice to those 13 families that suffered as a result of that disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal during the last administration. In addition, at your direction, Mr. President, the CIA has negotiated and secured the release of Americans like Mark Fogel and Ksenia Karolina, who have been wrongfully detained, sending the message that you will forget about no Americans that are being held in other places unfairly and unjustly. And finally, Mr. President, the CIA is being restructured at your direction to focus on our core mission and to eliminate the well-documented politicization that has taken place in the intelligence community from bad actors in the past, to focus on our core mission and to make America safe again. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. President.
Good job. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Russell?
We're obviously involved in a number of budget bills that are moving, trying to make sure all of your priorities are reflected in the reconciliation, working on our upcoming budget. Wonderful job by the entire cabinet on that front. Details soon on that front. Sending up rescissions bills to Congress for things that Elon has found. But the regulatory aspect is something we don't talk about enough. And right now you've given us a goal of 10 for 1. We are working right now with all of the agencies to rack up how big of a deregulatory agenda that we can have. When you came into office, you basically stopped $200 billion in costs to American families just by stopping the Biden regulatory agenda. That's about $2,000 per family. We think when we're going to hit these 10 for 1 goals that we could be in the neighborhood of about $900 billion in savings to American families. That would be substantially bigger than that $2,000 number. And the point that I would make, in addition to just savings cheaper to the American people, there's an aspect of wisdom when you're enforcing these rules that comes into play. And I'm your regulator for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and we found this small mortgage lender in Chicago. His name is Barry Sterner. He had a firm called Townstone. And CFPB had gone after him because he complained about crime in Chicago, literally the same thing that the Democrat mayor had talked about. And they came after him for 7 years on a redlining disparate impact claim and ruined his life. We overturned that. We apologized on your behalf to that individual, and we basically, without having to go through notice and comment, we ended the policy that set that in motion. And so that's happening across these agencies with how they are using their enforcement discretion, and it will only continue based on the stone wall of backing that you've given us to make these hard calls. I don't think they're actually that hard, but no one's done it to this point, and we were able to go forward and do that because of the backing that you've given us.
So maybe the biggest thing we're working on, maybe bigger than tariffs in a certain sense, is we call it the One Big Beautiful Bill. And that's wielding its way right now through the Senate. And John Thune has been actually amazing. And the Speaker has been so great, Congress. Mike Johnson has been really two guys that they get along great, and it's just been a beautiful, unified attack, really, because we have to attack because the Democrats are trying to stop it at every turn. It would mean a 58% tax hike if they were successful, and lots of other bad things beyond the tax hike. But with us, it'll be the biggest tax cut in American history. How are we doing with the bill?
We're doing great. We're day in, day out, hour by hour negotiations to make sure your stuff is in there, and to make sure we have the border resources, the defense resources, and to save the American people some tax money and make sure all those tax cuts that you ran on are in there that help get people back into the workforce. And I think we're making a ton of progress.
I think we're doing well. Like I said, the biggest tax cut in the history of our country. And it would be the biggest tax increase if the Democrats are successful. They're the only people I've ever seen running for office where they want to increase taxes, but this would be a 58, maybe a 60% tax increase, unsustainable for the American people. Thank you very much. Great job. Susie, the most powerful woman in the world, they say. I agree with that. I agree.
I'll be brief so you can hear from these amazing people. Congratulations to everyone on 100 days. That's been it's unparalleled in my memory and best I can tell ever. But it hasn't been busy for busy's sake. The president's promises made to the American people have been kept time and time and time again. You all have been out there spreading the word with community groups and states and media. It hasn't gone unnoticed, and let's work hard for the next 100 and have equally as much success then. Thank you.
And you're doing a great job, Susie. Yeah. I think everybody agrees, right?
Yeah.
Do we have anybody that disagrees, please? In front of the media. In front of the media. Please raise your hand if you have the courage to do so. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Ran away.
And you made it very clear that you wanted to put America first. And also from day one, you wanted to make housing affordable again, because we do have a housing affordability crisis in our country. And so at HUD, we've been cutting all the red tape and bureaucracy as it pertains to housing affordability and unleashing creativity of our builders and developers around our country and restoring local control. We took down the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, as you know, which was a zoning tax from Washington. So no longer will Washington be picking winners and losers, but localities and elected officials in different states and cities will have that flexibility. Also, you alluded to securing the border, and such a great job has been done with all of our partners at the table. And at HUD, we want to make sure that the resources that we have now, which is American taxpayer dollars, in the Biden administration, they prioritize illegal aliens over the American people. And so we signed an MOU with Secretary Noem at DHS to make sure that HUD-funded housing only goes to American citizens, and no longer will it go to illegal aliens coming across our border. We have about 9 million people living in subsidized housing in our country, 59% of illegal alien families use some sort of welfare program, costing us $42 billion a year. And so we have prioritized American and American people only to live in HUD-funded housing. And also to make housing affordable, we also signed a partnership with Secretary Burgum at DOI to use underutilized federal lands as you campaigned on and promised to identify those lands to build affordable housing in our country so that people can realize the American dream. We also restored biological truth, as you did in sports. We have the equal access rule at HUD, which we took that rule down to ensure that at women shelters, that those that enter those shelters would be of the same sex, and that we would protect the ladies of our country. No longer will those that identify as women but are not women be able to enter our shelter, so that we can protect the ladies that we serve. Along with our DOGE task force, we identified over $2 billion in savings at HUD. $260 million at HUD were just in contracts, $4 million were DEI. And so we took those contracts down and de-obligated and sent back $1.9 billion back to the Treasury for the American people. Again, we want to be good stewards over the American taxpayer dollars. And so Mr. President, at HUD, and I'm so grateful to be part of this team around this table to take care of the American people. And I consider it a great honor and humble to do so.
Good job.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Brooke?
Well, I'm not sure if anyone's heard, but the price of eggs is down. I know it's news. Listen, sir, today as we celebrate the 100th day, I think that it's just such a joy and an honor to continue to do this work, so thank you for that. We have been obviously very focused on the cost of groceries, specifically eggs led the way, as you have so eloquently discussed over the last few months, and we're holding tight on a very significant decrease, which is great, and investing where we need to there. As I mentioned before the press came in, we have had a massive issue with Mexico on water, getting water to our farmers along the border for decades. When I worked in Texas 25 years ago, we were fighting with the Mexican government over the water then. You got involved about 2 weeks ago. That evening I started conversations, and as of just a few days ago, thanks to Secretary Rubio's great deputy secretary and I have been negotiating, and we hit the best deal, I believe, in history on behalf of our farmers, and thanks to your leadership and your strength on that. And that's a really big deal long term for those farmers in the southern part of the country. On the energy side, I know we've got Secretary Burgum and his partner Secretary Wright, but we often forget that agriculture has a major piece of the energy dominance agenda, not just timber, not just minerals, but biofuels. So we continue to support that great leadership coming from those agencies and doing hopefully our part as well, and they've been incredible in that. Our farmers have been hurting under the Joe Biden administration. There was a 30% increase in the cost of input, so the cost of doing business for these farmers over those 4 years. When we left the White House the first time 4 years ago, we had a $0 trade deficit with our agriculture products. After 4 years of Biden, that hit $50 billion because they just didn't make an effort. And so obviously that's $50 billion less dollars at a time of very thin profitability for our agriculture community. So the Congress passed because the last administration didn't get a farm bill done either, the farmers were hurting there. So Congress stepped in. I say all that and basically said $10 billion to move out. USDA, fastest in history, that money went out to those farmers that couldn't make plant their crops. And so I'm really proud of that, and you'll hear a lot of that from our farmers today, that this USDA is moving more quickly than any ever before. And we're not organizing money based on the color of skin and other ways, which was how the last administration was moving out. We have canceled $6 billion in contracts thanks to our great friend Elon Musk and his Doge team. A lot of those were DEI, gender, studying transgender mice. Who knew? The racism and pest management, we've canceled all of it. We're going through a major restructuring. USDA is one of the biggest agencies. It's sort of a catch-all, and we're really downsizing and aligning around putting farmers first, which is really important. A big part of USDA, though, is food stamps. It is perhaps one of the largest, if not the largest, welfare program and it's a supplemental nutrition program. Secretary Kennedy and I have been working very closely. We were in Texas yesterday talking about nutrition and agriculture. You can't make America healthy again without your farmers and your ranchers as your partner. So ensuring that our food stamp program and those at the bottom end of the socioeconomic ladder really have access to nutritious foods as we're facing an obesity crisis and a chronic disease crisis, which I'm sure Secretary Kennedy will touch on. And the final thing I'll say is this morning, Secretary Noem and I, together, and I brought a picture because I think this is important and it goes to why we're here. This is a South Dakota ranching family named the Mods. They are a fifth generation ranching family. Charles Mod, in his 30s, bought the ranch from his granddad, I'm going to show the press, when he was 17 years old. Those beautiful children, Lyle and Kennedy, his wife Heather. Under the Biden administration, they had, of their several hundred acre operation, they used about 20 acres and had a fence that had been there since 1910 when their family took over the ranching operation. There had never been really any problem that had been brought to their attention. Perhaps there was a minor dispute over, again, 20 acres. This family was indicted, prosecuted, threatened with jail time, told to find guardians for their children over a fence line dispute that the Biden DOJ pushed forward. So this morning, on the steps of the U.S. Department of Agriculture with Secretary Noem, who was their governor, as the governor of South Dakota, which is where these great people are from, all criminal charges were dropped, and really appreciate the Department of Justice. It was a really big day as we sent the signal that the over-criminalization and using government, and you know this better than anyone because you were in the crosshairs for so long, that those days are over and the regulation through prosecution is no more. And so this family is one of many that we'll now be talking to ensure that never happens again.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
very much.
you.
Great job. Please, Scott.
Sir, it's been a momentous 100 days with you at the helm, and I view this 100 days as setting the table for peace deals, trade deals, tax deals. So the next 100 days will be harvesting. You've created negotiating leverage and leadership that are going to yield remarkable results. Energy costs have plummeted, mortgage rates are down, food costs are moving lower, and American families are finding their financial footing again. I had a group in today. America, under your leadership, is on the verge of becoming an AI superpower. That our economy had become barbelled. We had high tech and finance on one side, natural resources led by energy, which the previous administration tried to kill on the other, and you're filling in between with precision manufacturing that we're going to be bringing back through good trade policies, good tax policies. Under the DOGE at Treasury and the IRS, cost, tech support, and efficiency have increased. We have the IRS revenues are up, and thanks to the young man sent over by DOGE, the IT update that began in 1990, which was begun before he was born, is going to be finished during your term. So trade, you couldn't make it up, trade, taxes, and deregulation. The one big beautiful bill under your leadership, Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune have done a great job, but they have you as a closer on many of their members. And I'll just close by saying economic security is national security is economic security, and it's never been better. We're rebuilding it, and as I said last week at the IMF and World Bank conferences, America first does not mean America alone. Under President Trump, it means leadership.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you. Are you busy enough? He's doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you, and thanks to the cabinet. So, at the risk of insulting everybody else at the table, I believe that I am the youngest member sitting at the table. And it occurred to me that from the time that I was born to the time that Donald J. Trump was inaugurated just a few months ago, we went from, again, 40 years, we went from the world's manufacturing superpower to one in which we depend on the People's Republic of China to make the things that we need. We went from the proudest military in the world to one in which we failed to meet our recruiting goals. And we went from one in which bipartisan border policy was the consensus of both Democrats and Republicans to one in which we allowed 20 million people to run roughshod illegally over the countryside, causing crime, causing a stress in the welfare system. And again, that happened over the lifetime of the youngest member of the cabinet. And what has happened in 100 days is that we've started to reverse every single one of those negative trends. And I think what it shows to me is that the president, and you sit in the Oval Office and you see these portraits of presidents past, and let's be honest, most of them have been placeholders. They've been people who have allowed their staff to sign executive orders with an auto pen instead of men of action. And the reason the media attacks this administration as chaotic is because the president is solving the problems the American people set about to solve. He's actually doing the things that he promised that he would do. And Mr. President, it's been an honor to be part of it for the past 100 days. And let me just make one other observation, because it's interesting. I've seen the data, I've monitored it, I've looked at it, but the most underreported fact of the first 100 days is that we came in with a massive recruitment shortfall. And in 100 days of Secretary Hegseth and President Trump's leadership, we now have people breaking down the doors to join our military. To the media assembled here, it's a really interesting question. Why has that happened? Completely aside from the fact that I think it's a good thing, or I think that President Trump deserves political credit for it, why did we go from a military where people didn't want to serve to now all of a sudden they do want to serve? That's a story you guys should cover, but compared to that, how much time have you instead focused on the fact that we deported an MS-13 gang member with a valid deportation order? And why is it that the press is so focused on the fake BS rather than what's really going on in the country? I think that what we've shown, sir, is that you can do a lot. You can do a lot in 100 days, but you've also unfortunately revealed that too much of the American media hasn't learned the lessons of the past 40 years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Pam?
President, your first 100 days has far exceeded that of any other presidency in this country, ever. Ever. Never seen anything like it. Thank you. Your directive to me was very simple: make America safe. And despite that, we've still been defending over 200 civil lawsuits filed against you. On top of everything else, I think I'm representing every one of you in this room in some capacity. And no, you will not be arrested by the U.S. Marshals. Over 200 lawsuits, over 50 injunctions, and now we've got multiple cases in front of the Supreme Court, and we will succeed, and we are doing great in front of the Supreme Court, President, and we'll continue on with that. I was at DEA yesterday, and they said to me, you, Donald Trump, have taken the handcuffs off of DEA agents. And as a result of, since you have been in office, President Trump, your DOJ agencies have seized more than 22 million fentanyl pills, 3,400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been, your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall and a Xanax, and it's laced with fentanyl, and they're dropping dead. And no longer because of you, what you've done. ATF, since you've been in office, President, along with DOJ agencies, seized 14,500 guns off the streets. Why aren't people reporting that? 651,000 rounds of ammo. That's up 151% from 2024. That's keeping America safe. We've rescinded death penalty. We are now seeking the death penalty on cases. I'm signing death warrants. We are going after terrorism. We are going after arsonists. Whether you're burning Teslas, we will see. We've arrested 9 people so far in 7 jurisdictions. No negotiations, 20 years in prison. Or you're burning down the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. We will be there to protect you. And I've been talking to Governor Shapiro, and he greatly appreciated you reaching out as well. ISIS terrorist, we got one in New York, right around the corner. We got an ISIS terrorist in New York. We have an October 7th task force. We just broke up a huge human trafficking ring by the Sinaloa cartel. 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine on our streets. Ton of fentanyl, 20,000 Molly pills. Those are the drug of choice among at clubs and bars for young kids. They were fake, but you know what they had in them? Fentanyl. That's 20,000 lives saved because of you, right there. We brought back 29 cartel members from Mexico at your direction, and one killed the Kiki Camareno, a DEA agent, in 1985, and many of us got to talk to his widow and his son, who is now a judge. And they started crying. They have tried to get that guy back forever, and thanks to so many of you in this room working together, they have justice. They were crying on the phone because of what you did, President Trump. Thank you. We're going after anti-Semitism. We're unleashing everything you told us. No more DEI, no more weaponization. We have rescinded, as I said, 200 policies, and I could go on all day long, but we are doing everything in our power to keep America safe at your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you,
job.
President.
You're really doing a great job.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Okay, let's go.
Nice to see you, Mr. President. Well, first of all, I think what you've heard amongst this team is the leadership, because it's given us the latitude really to collaborate amongst each other, not only in this room, as Jameson mentioned, we kind of get a break for a couple of hours here, but we stay in contact actually every other day that we're working for you. And I think what that says is, I was speaking to, for instance, the Farm Bureau of Texas yesterday. I'm not the Ag Secretary, but it matters to the workforce. I'm working with the other secretaries, Lutnick and McMahon, on education and the workforce investments that you've asked me to do, because as you've come in and negotiated these great repatriation of these companies and the investments, we're going to need that workforce to build back this economy. And I couldn't see that more as I've kicked off my 50-state tour. We've been in 5 states so far. We'll finish all 50 states by the end of the year. And what we're talking to is the American workforce and these companies about what the market demand is. That's the difference, that we finally have made that connection. What do they need? How quick do they need it? And how fast can I get these either apprenticeships toward that million that we've put that lofty goal? We've already added 80,000 new apprenticeships already just since January. So at the Department of Labor, that tour is kicked off, and I couldn't be more honored to be on the ground and see my colleagues that we're passing in the skies, but we're on the ground together because we're all collaborating together. One of the things that we're talking about, illegal immigration, I have put states on notice. I warned all 50 governors that if they continue to reward illegal immigration by treating unemployment benefits as a handout, they're going to lose their federal funding as well. We can no longer continue to give unemployment insurance to illegal immigrants, and so I've let those governors, and I sent out that letter last week. We also eliminated discriminatory DEI offices within the department, specifically the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. Most of our federal contracts were really just to focus on DEI enforcement. We were really punishing a lot of these companies. If they weren't complying, they weren't going to have a federal contract. We've let go of that program completely. $4.4 billion in unspent COVID funds came back to the Treasury from the CARES Act. Billions were collecting dust in these coffers, in the state coffers. We've asked for that money back to return to the Department of Treasury. We saved $250 million by canceling America Last, is what I call it, foreign handouts, including funding for things like transparency and accountability for Uzbekistan cotton industry. It doesn't make sense that we're funding these foreign, and thank you to DOJ and to the government efficiency of what we have found with the fraud that we're seeing.
I mean, some of these things are so ridiculous you can't believe it.
No, I write them down and I read them more than once.
Cotton
Like, this can't be
farmers?
true. Yeah, it doesn't
It
make
sounds like
sense.
a comedy sketch.
That's right. And so again, with the executive order preparing Americans for high-paying skilled trade jobs of the future, that's our goal. The trades is where we're being focused, but all companies, and we want to make sure we're on hand for that. And what I want to say is thank you to government efficiency, because you asked us, when this transitions out, will our departments and our agencies continue that government efficiency? And I think that we've surpassed that in the Department of Labor. Out of our 14,000 federal employees, 3,000 have taken the DRP, and we offered it again. So over 21% have taken that offer. And we'll keep our critical workforce, MSHA, OSHA, and wage and hour, and make sure our workers stay safe. So with your leadership, Mr. President, I couldn't be more honored to serve. I know we were probably the last to know each other, but we're getting to know each other well. And the team that you have assembled is really an honor to serve with. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. You Doing great. Thank you very much. Chris, please.
Mr. President, you ran on unleashing American energy, and 100 days have shown the tremendous impacts that can arise from the unleashing you have enabled. I'll just hit a few highlights. Number one, oil, gasoline, and diesel prices are the lowest they've been in years. How does that happen in 100 days? That's a messaging. Your message that we're pro-energy. We're not against energy, we're for it. That sends a message to the marketplace that supply is easier to grow now and supply will be coming, and that's already led to tremendous savings for American consumers across the country. And we need not only more affordable energy, but we need a lot more energy. One highlight I think a couple of us have touched on is AI. This is a new emerging critical industry that's very energy intensive. It is not acceptable for the United States to not be the leader in AI. We must win the AI race and lead in that, and that's going to take a lot more energy. If you had not won election, we would not have won the AI race. Full stop. Energy would not have been there to enable us to win. Reshoring of manufacturing. These trillions of dollars you led off with, it's going to come back to our country to make chips, to make steel, to make automobiles, to make artificial intelligence, to make all of these industries we've outsourced. That's only going to be possible with way more American energy. But we have that energy. We have those resources. We have those businesses. We have those capitalists. We just need to stop standing in the way of them and follow the lead you've set, which is to enable them, not to subsidize them, not to help them, to enable them to invest American money and create American jobs here. Regarding our balance of trade, the second largest export of the United States is liquefied natural gas. Second fastest. In the next few years, it'll be our largest export in our country. But yet, 18 months ago, the Biden administration had said, we're going to stop issuing permits for new LNG export terminals. That's just nuts. That's a great competitive advantage we have, huge balance of trade driver, a huge industry just coiled and ready to go. I just came back from Poland last night. They are thrilled that America's back in business again and that the rest of Europe can get off of Russian energy and can enable their own economic growth with secure, reliable, affordable energy from the United States. Also witnessed the signing ceremony for a deal between two large American businesses to build a huge nuclear power plant in northeastern Poland. The first of this design built in Europe. It'll be the first of many. I spoke with many other nations over there. They want to buy more American gas. They want to get American technology. They want to have a partnership with us. And they shared the message I delivered to Europe in my keynote remarks is that unleashing energy is the way you make your society safer, more prosperous, more free. And that these sort of over-the-top climate alarmism doesn't do anything to help the environment of our world, but it does impoverish people, it does reduce the security of your nation, and it makes you weaker. I think that's a constant message many of us around this table have brought to Europe. We want our friends in Europe standing up again and leaning in. A lot great is happening under your leadership. We're unleashing consumer products that Americans wanted to buy that Biden was making illegal. I'll be in Georgia on Friday at Renai's manufacturing plant. Tankless natural gas water heaters. Incredibly popular product. They almost became illegal. The return of common sense is incredibly welcome across this country, across the world. And back to Elon, that extra thing, we're going to deliver all of this with less people, less money, less burden on the U.S. taxpayers. Not smaller departments and smaller services, better, more thoughtful services done more efficiently and smarter. The way you'd have to run a business. We've got to get our fiscal house in order, and you and the people around this table are making it happen. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm honored to be here.
Good job. Thank you very much. Please.
Yes, Mr. President, you are 100% correct. The border is 99.99% safe, under control. You have completely reversed the entire situation. In fact, the day before yesterday, I was down in El Paso, and those Border Patrol agents are so impacted by how you have changed things in a year. They have put up huge pictures that say, under the Biden administration, the mobs of people that were pushing through razor wire and trampling children, and the chaos and the violence that was happening at that same location, they have a picture there that says, this is what the Biden administration looks like. And this is what the Trump administration looks like. It's peaceful. People who do business between Mexico and America are coming through. They're doing it legally. They're following the law, and it's all because of what you've done and what you've empowered them to do. The recruitment for Border Patrol is through the roof. For ICE agents, they want to be a part of ICE because they recognize they actually get to do their jobs. I have the Coast Guard too. Coast Guard recruitment is up over 20% just in the last 60 days. Everybody wants to be a part of what the heritage is of this country. We've repositioned the entire Coast Guard fleet to focus on border and drug interdiction. As we've secured the border, the cartels have gone to the water and are going out in maritime waters to move their drugs into this country. The Coast Guard just in the last 2 months has taken into custody over 126 tons of cocaine, millions of doses of fentanyl. It's just amazing. And the aliens that they are deporting is incredible too. We've been working with all of them. The one thing that I want to point out is the fake news has been saying that Biden deported more people than you. And it's an absolute lie. And they're letting the Biden administration get away with manipulating and cooking the books. What they're counting for the Biden administration is every single person that came to that border that they processed and let into this country. They're allowing Biden to say that was a deportation just by processing somebody and letting them come into the country. It's absolutely false. It's not true at all. You have deported over 250 known terrorists. You've deported thousands of foreign terrorist organization members and gang members, hundreds of thousands of people that were in this country illegally. We've collected $30 billion worth of tariffs through CBP, and we've also collected millions and millions, hundreds of millions of fines and penalties from people that have overstayed here in this country. So I just want to thank you. You've been a game changer. I want to thank Pete for his leadership at DOD and what they've done. I want to thank Marco for his diplomacy and getting us travel documents into these countries. Mexico has finally come to the table and now is going to take a lot more people that we're able to send back to that country. And the president of Mexico told me, sir, she turned around over 500,000 people in Mexico before they ever reached our border. We should be counting those as deportations because they never even made it to the border because she turned them around because you forced her to. So those are all people that never even came here because they got the message because you were so aggressive. So thank you for what you're doing. And every day we get to get up and do jobs that matter. And we appreciate
Tom
that.
Holm is doing a great
Oh,
job.
yeah. Tom's a great messenger for us. He just, yeah, he's hardcore. Yeah, thank you.
He is hardcore.
Yeah, he is.
No question about it. Kelly?
Mr. President, it's such an honor to serve in this administration and on behalf of Main Street America, for our 34 million small businesses that make up 99% of all businesses in this great nation. I have to tell you, under your leadership, Main Street is open for business again. They're thriving and they're investing. And the data that we have at the Small Business Administration, the loans that we're putting out, a record 26,000 loans in your first 100 days means that 2,000 small businesses each week are receiving that funding, that investment in the future. Small businesses create 2 out of every 3 new jobs in this country, and we've already seen under your leadership the jobs economy is back, manufacturing jobs are back. We've seen a 38% increase in manufacturing loans. We put out 1,500 manufacturing loans in your first 100 days. We saw startups increase by 54%, and we saw businesses under 5 people increase by 95%. So your leadership on the economy matters to every region of this great nation. I'll tell you on the manufacturing front, I'm out on a national manufacturing tour. We've met with 250 manufacturers, and as I walk through the factory floors, they all ask me to thank you for fighting for their jobs, for these industries, and for the people who are creating things from pharmaceuticals to aerospace, to food, and all these essentials that this nation needs to be independent and strong. And to that end, I'm working with Congress. We'll be announcing tomorrow an upsizing of our manufacturing loans to make sure that that economic engine, because 98% of all manufacturers are small businesses. It's incredible to walk through these factories that are really creating what you had in your first administration, the blue collar boom. It's now a new collar boom because it's the intersection of technology and manufacturing and what they can create for our war fighters, for our aerospace, for pharmaceuticals with less than 300 to 500 employees, sometimes 100 employees. I was at a factory in Georgia on Monday that is creating machines to help with the Iron Dome in Israel, less than 50 employees. This is the engine of our economy. It's the heartbeat of our communities. It's the small businesses that helped elect you because they needed your economic agenda. So thank you, Mr. President. It's such an honor, and congratulations on an epic 100 days. I do have to thank Elon. I do want to note, we just cut $3 billion in contracts because of Doge's work. That's $3 billion that hardworking families that won't have to work until April 15th to pay for the waste, fraud, and abuse that we continue to find in this government on behalf of taxpayers. So again, thank you, Elon, as
Thanks,
well.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Great job, Kelly. Thank you very much. Elon, I love the double hat, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
He's the only one that can do that. Get away with it.
Well, Mr. President, you know, they say I wear a lot of hats. And as you can see, it's true.
Yo.
Even my hat has a hat.
Yo, man. He gets everybody.
You know, the American people voted for secure borders, safe cities, and sensible spending. And that's what they've gotten. A tremendous amount has been accomplished in the first 100 days. As everyone has said, it's more than has been accomplished in any administration before, ever, period. This portends very well for what will happen for the rest of the administration. I think this could be the greatest administration since the founding of the country.
Well, we all want to thank you for your help. You know, you really have sacrificed a lot. Been treated very unfairly.
Well, they do like to rent my cars, which is not great. You know, could be better.
But you
It's
have been
too
treated
rich.
unfairly. But the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what can be done, and we just want to thank you very much. And you know, you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars and his You've done an incredible job. $150 billion. Think of this.
Yeah. 160 now.
Yeah, 160.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, it could have been more. And a lot of stuff is being worked on. That number could be doubled and even tripled. A lot of things are being worked on that we don't count yet because it's not quite there. But you've done a fantastic job, and we appreciate it very much, Elon. You know
Thank
that.
you. It's also an honor to work with your incredible cabinet. I just like to say thank you, everyone, for your, it's great to work with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, congratulations on this truly historic first 100 days of your administration. Really only made possible by your focused leadership on delivering the mandate the American people gave you. You've empowered all of us to deliver that mandate, and I'm grateful to have the privilege of leading the intelligence community towards ending the weaponization, politicization of the intelligence community that's gone on for far too long, and building out what is truly a lean and agile and effective intelligence community that is helping you deliver that promise to the American people of safety, security, and freedom. So, Mr. President, I'd like to highlight just 3 of the areas where we are helping to support your leadership and your work in making America safe again and bringing about these changes. First of all, because of your designation of cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, I took immediate action with our National Counterterrorism Center to prioritize their focus on those terrorists and gang members who are trying to enter our country through legal or illegal means, and to seek out those who already are here in our country because of the Biden administration's 4 years of open borders. We've been working very closely with your great Attorney General's team at the DEA to get these known cartels into our systems, to be able to stop them at the border, and turning over names to Department of Homeland Security and the FBI to be able to find those who are already here in our country. Just the other day, we found 700 alien terrorists who have ties to MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and the Sinaloa cartel. Just yesterday, our NCTC identified almost 600 individuals with ties to other terrorists who came through our borders illegally, claimed asylum, and under the Biden administration were paroled here within our borders. Secondly, Mr. President, like too many organizations in the federal government, the ODNI has become very bloated with too much waste and abuse going on within the organization. We've done a few immediate steps. We are doing more. The ODNI is 25% smaller and more lean today than it was when I walked in the door and when you took office. Secondly, we have just this morning actually shut down a human capital office. As soon as you issued the executive order to stop all DEI activities, we did that, shut down the DEI office. But we discovered this human capital office that was essentially a slush fund for DEI initiatives, hidden under the guise of human capital, that closed down this morning, saving taxpayers $150 million. We'll soon be announcing an additional $2.6 billion in savings with other programs and contracts that do nothing to ensure our national security interests. And lastly, we're working every day to hold the deep state accountable, to end the politicization, weaponization of the intelligence community. This past week, I sent 3 criminal referrals for illegal and unauthorized leaks to the media of classified intelligence for prosecution. We have 11 more that are under investigation. We've revoked, at your direction, 67 security clearances, and we continue the work of declassifying documents, as we have already around JFK assassination. We have more coming for the assassination of Bobby's father, Senator Kennedy, and MLK assassination. And we continue our extensive investigations around exposing the very serious issues we have related to election integrity, illegal abuses of FISA, Crossfire Hurricane, and others. Mr. President, under your leadership, we are working every day to bring about that transparency and accountability that the American people deserve. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great job. Thank you very much. Lee?
Mr. President, at the Biden EPA, the Green New Deal was raging. At the Biden EPA, we saw billions of tax dollars burning. At the Biden EPA, we saw industries suffocating. But at the Trump EPA, the Green New Deal is dead. At the Trump EPA, we know that we can both protect the environment and grow the economy. I have 13 pages of accomplishments from our first 100 days in here, and in it, part of it is 100 environmental accomplishments at the Trump EPA. You don't have to take my word for it. We released it to the media this morning. Every single day that President Trump is in this office, there will be a major environmental accomplishment every single day of the Trump administration. At the Trump EPA, we're also launching what is the largest deregulatory action in the history of the country. We're going to be giving our director of the OMB a whole lot of work because we inherited a big mess from the Biden EPA. And working with Elon and Doge, I've canceled now $22 billion worth of grants. Now today is a special day for many reasons. The biggest reason why we're here is that this is the 100th day of the most consequential, historic first 100 days in the history of this country. Today, while we're here, the House of Representatives is voting on Congressional Review Act bills, considering the EPA waivers that were given to California's tailpipe emissions, where California set their own standards. But there should be one national standard, and right now, Congress, on the House side, is going to be voting on that today. On a personal note, while this is a bit outside of the EPA jurisdiction, today is my last day serving in the United States Army. And I first signed up towards the end of the 90s. And I've had a chance to see a lot of national security teams over the course of the last 27 years. There has never been a national security team ever assembled that had the backs of our warriors like this national security team right now. And we have never had a president so deeply committed towards ending foreign wars instead of starting new ones. There's a reason, Mr. Vice President, why everyone is racing to join our Department of Defense. We have a Secretary of Defense who, with all due respect to our great president, would probably rather be swimming with Navy SEALs right now, be running somewhere in the Middle East with our service members. And from our Secretary of Defense to our Secretary of State, our Vice President, and more. I just want to say thank you as a veteran of our military for assembling what is the greatest national security team that I have ever seen in my 27 years associated with the United States Army.
Has Pete signed off on his retirement leave? Welcome to the VA, Lee. Thank you for your service, Lee.
Yeah, thank
You're doing a fantastic job. We appreciate it very much. So,
Well, Mr. President, I don't think I have ever worked so hard to try to fire myself. But we're certainly making great strides in that. We've reduced the folks over at the Department of Education by about 50% now through our RIF program, and so we've closed a lot of the district offices, consolidated, so there are a lot fewer people working a lot more efficiently in the Department of Education. The commissioners of education in every state, and I was at a meeting with them not too long ago for not only our states but our territories. They are thrilled with the opportunity now to be able to have more control over the education in their states, to get rid of a lot of the red tape and regulation that's kept them from doing what they're doing. So we're seeing, I think, great improvements. We'll see test scores, I believe. It'll take a bit for them to be able to go up, but I think now that they're going to have the opportunity to put in their own programs, we'll see that grow. At the same time, we've been focused on higher education for our universities. We've returned proper enforcement of Title IX protections to schools. We have stopped funding to Columbia, for instance, and some other schools for not only Title IX but Title VI infractions. And those are moving along. I think we've brought people to the table. They know that you're serious. You meant what you said. They're going to make changes. They're making their campuses safer again. Anti-Semitism was just out of control in many of our universities. And so some tried to, in fact, Harvard is sued, and they're saying that it's, First Amendment infraction. No, this is civil rights, safety on our campuses for our young students, who are there. And with Pam's help and the task force that we formed with HHS, with GSA, with other agencies, we're going to make sure that our campuses are safe. And so there's a lot of good work going on. I think one of the biggest things, you'll be very happy to hear this, Mr. Vogt, that we are putting back into place collecting on our student loans that have been delinquent since March of 2020. There's been no effort to recollect on those loans. So as of May 5th, the letter goes out that the loan recollection is beginning again. So for those people who have borrowed money and have not been paid, and that's just not to be punitive. There are many ways that they can go online to understand how they can get back into the right payment structure, because when they're in default, they can't buy a house, they can't buy a car because their credit scores are down. So it's helpful to them as well as to get this money back into the country. I mean, with $60 billion of increased student loan debt since 2020. And in total, we've got almost $1.7 trillion in student debt. So we're gonna start getting it back. And Scott and his team have been incredibly helpful. We appreciate that so very, very much. And so a lot's going on at the department. And what I would really like, as I'm firing myself, I'd like for you to be known as the education president, because of the best in practice systems that we want to put in every state to incorporate AI, so that we are training these new entrepreneurs and business leaders in our country. We can't do it with the infrastructure we have in place today, so we have to be working on that at the same time. So we're going to be doing that. So thank you for your charge to elevate education so that we are providing for every student access to excellent education. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Linda. And what's going on with Harvard and some of these colleges that are taking vast amounts of money, who also have vast amounts? They've got $52 billion and really scamming the public and hiring people like de Blasio and Lori Lightfoot, who are certainly two of the worst mayors in the history of our country, paying them a fortune of salary and having them teach our children how to manage cities and how to manage government. What's the word as of this morning on, let's say, Harvard?
Well, we're negotiating with them. When we went back to them to say we'd welcome them back to the negotiating table, their response was a lawsuit. So Pam and her team are helping helping work with that. And I am, enjoying the fact not only am I firing myself, but I'm now being sued fairly regularly by different departments of education. But we're staying tough with them. The other thing that we're looking at also are the 117 violations of these big universities like Harvard and others who are not reporting, as they're required to do by law, foreign money that comes in and how much that is and where it comes from. And so that is
And
very
students.
Yeah, and it's very serious.
Where are these people coming from?
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
sir, we pulled back their grants because Harvard isn't responding to us, criminal activity by their students. And until they give us that list, they're not getting any more grants from Homeland
Good.
Security.
I think you should pull it back.
We did.
The students they have, the professors they have,
Right.
the attitude they have is not American, and I think you should. A grant is a grant. We don't have to give grants.
Exactly right.
So we'll pull back the grant. All right. Very good.
Right.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
Thank you.
Bobby?
Mr. President, thank you for your extraordinary leadership over the past 100 days. We are already making America healthy again. We announced last week the ban on the 9 petroleum-based synthetic dyes, food dyes. Within 2 years, within 2 months, we're going to ban the worst 2 of them. I am working with Secretary Rollins on dietary guidelines, the dietary guidelines that the President Biden's administration gave us. 453 pages. They're basically unreadable. And they are the product of the same kind of politicized science that drove Fruit Loops to the top of the food pyramid. And we're going to do real science, gold standard science. We're going to develop we have till December to do it, but we are working very, very fast together. We're going to get it done by the end of the summer in time to drive change, major dramatic changes in the school food, the school lunch programs over the next school year. I'm working also with Secretary Rollins on the SNAP program and to get sodas and candy off of the food stamp program. 10% of food stamps go to SNAP. And I want to thank you for your courage. You are a business-friendly president, probably the most business-friendly in our history, but you're also willing to stand up to very, very powerful businesses, and you've shown that again and again. Secretary Rollins had the soda industry come and knock on her door very much, very loudly, and they said to her, well, the SNAP program is not supposed to be about nutrition. She pointed out to them that there is no nutrition in a soda. And they said, well, it's not supposed to be about nutrition. And she said to them, the name of the program is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So it is about nutrition. And we shouldn't, we have 38% of our kids are diabetic or pre-diabetic, and we are paying at both ends. We're paying for the food-like substances that make them diabetic, and then we're being bankrupt. We're spending $1 trillion a year on metabolic dysfunction. It's existential and it's not sustainable. I visited Arizona, West Virginia, Utah, and Indiana in the last 2 weeks, who have all applied for SNAP waivers. We're encouraging, thanks to Brooke Rollins' leadership, all of the states to apply for those waivers. I also visited Utah, which is the first state to ban supplemental fluoride. Florida yesterday passed a bill to ban supplemental fluoride. I'm confident Governor DeSantis is going to sign that. We are working, Lee Zeldin and I are working together to change the federal fluoride regulations, to change the recommendations, and we're looking at the science now. I want to point out that in August, the National Toxicity Program, which was an arm of the NIH, did a meta-review of all the science on fluoride and found that there's a direct inverse correlation between fluoride exposure and lowered IQ in children. So the more you get, the stupider you are. And we need smart kids in this country, and we need healthy kids, and thank you for your leadership. We're going to get there. We're reviewing the GRAS standards now we're revamping them to get 10,000 ingredients that are in our foods. The Europeans only have 400 ingredients. We have 10,000. There are chemicals we know nothing about. And we are going to stop that process, and then we're going to go back and look at these chemicals and make the companies either get rid of them or to label them. We've launched Operation Stork Speed, and we're going full speed ahead to make sure that we have good, high quality milk for children. We have launched the autism study at your direction. By September, we'll have some of the first answers. Within 6 months of that, we will have definitive answers, not only for autism, but for the etiology of a whole range of autoimmune diseases that have become epidemic in our children. We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration. And we have ended funding for gender mutilation, surgeries, and other kind of gender dysphoria practices. And thanks to Elon, we have saved $67 billion at our agency without compromising any of our critical programs. Mr. President, I want to thank you for your vision, for your leadership, for giving me the 100 busiest days of my life, and most exciting and most rewarding. And there's, over the next 100 days, we're going to do much, much more.
That's good. Thank you very much, Bobby. Very good, very important. Thank you. Doug, please.
Well, President Trump, on your first day in office, you wisely declared a national energy emergency. And this was essential because it was the signal that we're going to go 180 degrees from the disastrous and dangerous Biden policies that were based on a climate ideology that was the root cause of the inflation in this country. It was the root cause of wars abroad. It was the root cause of our manufacturing disappearing from our country. We can't have energy security. Without energy security, we can't have national security, and you understood that. But now with everything that's flowed from that, dozens of other EOs that you've done, America is back in the energy business. As Chris said, there's been a signal that's sent around the world. Capital is flowing, coming back in. The smart money is coming to this country. And now you've given us a chance to win the AI arms race against China. We know we're up against a formidable competitor. China opened up 94 gigawatts of coal in the last year. That's more than all of California and all of New York combined in the last year. We've had presidents in the past, the Biden administration, that were running away again under this climate ideology. You've embraced baseload power in this country. I'll never forget standing in the East Room with you, surrounded by the coal miners around this country, where you said, hey, big, beautiful coal. As we work to try to identify the balance sheet of America, our earliest estimate is that the coal resources in America, just on public lands, could be worth $8 trillion with a T. That was all going to be taken off our balance sheet if we weren't going to touch it. But now we're back in the business. I was 1,800 feet underground in a coal mine in Alabama a couple weeks ago. They do metallurgical coal. Without metallurgical coal, we can't produce steel. This is a plant. This is a plant that would have been in a mining operation that would have been shut down under the Biden administration. What we're doing here, back in the business, we're doing leasing. We're leasing for oil and gas. We're leasing for timber with Brooke Rollins. We're leasing for grazing. We're leasing for critical minerals, which is key. And when we lease the public lands appropriately and by the law to do that, we're bringing in revenue. We're bringing in jobs. We're helping strengthen America. And so we're treating our natural resources like the American balance sheet they are. And America's resources, the 700 million acres of surface that's public, the 700 million of subsurface, the 2.5 billion offshore, all contain what we need to have self-sufficient supply chains. And so in this, we're focused deeply on critical minerals. The Biden administration put us in a real predicament right now. The whole trade team, the whole cabinet, Susie's jumping in, leadership across everybody in the National Energy Dominance Council. But of the top 20 critical and rare earth minerals that we need for defense, that we need for industry. China's controlling 85% of the refining for that. So we are running at warp speed 7 days a week to try to put ourselves back in business in that way. So, and I want to just close out by saying a couple other things. One is the border. Few people realize that 41% of the southern border is in Department of Interior. And then we've got a few more percent that come with Brook and with the Forest Service. But that's been a risk area. Part of the reason everyone was pouring into our country, Biden wasn't enforcing the border laws. They definitely weren't enforcing it on public lands. And so again, using tying two presidents that had a great propensity for action, Theodore Roosevelt in 1907 created what was called the Roosevelt Reservation, 60-foot strip that go from Texas all the way to the Pacific Ocean, because he was worried in some future state there might be smuggling. I don't think he was anticipating human smuggling and fentanyl trafficking, but that has been largely unused. He gave us the authority to transfer that, and so working with Christie and working with Pete, we've transferred that to the DOD. So transferring land from the other agencies like Interior to the Department of Defense, then as Pete said, they can do the detain and assist with the military. And having been down at the border multiple times in recent week, I can confirm everything Christie said. The enthusiasm, the morale of that group is exactly 100% opposite of when Christie and I were down there as governors. I had Border Patrol people say that they were multi-generational service in that law enforcement that said, my wife and I are telling our children never to go into this thing, to go into Border Patrol. People this time were saying, I got a 17-year-old. As soon as they turn 18-year-old, they're signing up. My wife is thrilled. They're going into law enforcement. They're so proud to be serving with you. Everybody I've met, whether it's in a coal mine or at the border, law enforcement, the one thing they say on those trips is, please thank President Trump from all of us, the change that you're making. And I want to say especially this became very dear when we last week renamed a U.S. Wildlife Refuge in honor of Jocelyn Nungare. Jocelyn Nungare, of course, lost her life tragically to illegal Venezuelan gang members in this country in a horrific way. But her mother, Alexis, was at that ceremony. Her grandmother was there, and Jocelyn's great-grandmother was there. There are 3 other generations of that family were there. They all wanted to pass on their thank you to you too, and we've secured her name forever as a sanctuary, and really is saying that every child, every 12-year-old, every child in America should be safe in their own communities, and you've dedicated a beautiful piece on the coast in honor of her. So, President Trump, in your first term, when I had a chance to work with you as governor, you were courageous. The thing that's empowering this amazing group of people around this table, and you've probably assembled the greatest cabinet ever, is that this time you're not just courageous, you're actually fearless. And it's your fearlessness to take on the issues that other presidents would not touch, whether it's the work that we're doing with successfully streamlining and right-sizing government, or whether it's taking on the issues at the border, or whether it's embracing the power we need to win the arms race. You're fearlessly doing that, and that creates it just all of us can sprint because you're running ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And you are doing a great job. And with Chris, that's a pretty much unbeatable combination, I have to tell you. So thank you both very much. Thank you, Doug. It's great. Marco?
Well, it's not easy to go last after all these reports that have come here. First of all, Mr. So I better be good, and I'll be short as well. A couple things, Mr. President. I think you deserve a lot of credit for 2 things. The first is assembling this great team of people. Some of whom I've known for a long time, others who I've gotten to know during this period of time, but putting together a team, not just of talented individuals, but that work well together, is something never going to be reported on in the media or fully seen, but it happens every single day. For the most part, I interact with almost everyone around this table at some level, and because of Secretary Kennedy, I'm afraid to eat anything. So in front of him, yeah. He said Tootsie Rolls are okay in moderation. So. But it's a great team. And here's the second, and I tell this to people all the time. This is incredibly rewarding service, and you hear it in everyone's voices. Traditionally, in the past, and it's one of the problems we got in as a country, is presidents would say, okay, let's go do something, and then they would have to do a study, and then a study on the study, and then a long internal deliberative process, and by the time you got to it, it was too late, or somebody had forgotten it. In this administration, it's moving. You know the direction because you know why you were elected. The American people elected you very clearly, and basically it's measured I used to say by days and weeks, now it's measured by hours and minutes, but action is happening.
Sure.
And that's
Sure.
what people want to see. And let me talk about foreign policy in particular, because I'm not sure this is fully appreciated. This president inherited 30 years of foreign policy that was built around what was good for the world. In essence, the decisions we made as a government in trade and foreign policy was basically, is it good for the world? Is it good for the global community? And under President Trump, we're making a foreign policy now that's, was it good for America? I was appointed by you and confirmed by the Senate to be the head of the United States Department of State. Not the World Department of State, not the Global Department of State, the United States Department of State. And what that means is our foreign policy is guided by three things. Does it make America stronger? Does it make America safer? And does it make America richer? If something doesn't do one of those three things, and hopefully all three of those things, we're not doing it. Now, we went out and hired a consulting firm to help us organize ourselves. Luckily, they were free. They're called the Department of Government Efficiency. And they helped us do a couple things. Number one is our foreign aid. We were funding some crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. You tell me, how does a puppet show in some country around the world make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous? So we got rid of puppet shows and a bunch of other things. I'm sure there were very good puppet shows. And I'm sure that a bunch of charities in the world can go pay for it, but the American taxpayer should not. We've also, by the way, Mr. President, under your direction, reorganized the Department of State. We had offices within offices within offices that didn't even know they existed themselves, not to mention the rest of. And so we've begun to reorganize that as a way to be able to empower our embassies and our ambassadors and our regional bureaus to do what many of them signed up to do. We have a great team of ambassadors you've appointed. They're coming online every single day. Very talented people that are involved. Something else we got out of the business of, well, it wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
We can follow up with the media.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about the Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that. Beyond that, Mr. President, and this I'll move quickly because this has been a team effort, we have gone to countries all over the world and said, hey, you want good relations with the United States, you need to take back your people that are here illegally. And we've had historic cooperation. Beyond that, and I say this unapologetically, we are actively searching for other countries to take people from third countries. So we are actively, not just El Salvador, we are working with other countries to say, we want to send you some of the most despicable human beings to your countries. Will you do that as a favor to us? And the further away from America, the better, so they can't come back across the border. I'm not apologetic about it. We are doing that. The president was elected to keep America safe and to get rid of a bunch of perverts and pedophiles and child rapists out of our country. Here's something else we've done. We stopped giving student visas to people who are coming here to burn down our universities and take over libraries and harass people. Why are we giving student visas to people who are coming here to create disruption? And we've taken away the student visas of people that have come here to do that. It's simple. If you're coming to America to start riots, we're going to take away your student visa. And by the way, every country in the world that I travel, 14 countries in 14 weeks, you know what they all say to me? Yes, that's what we would do too. So the only people who seem to disagree with us are a handful of federal judges and a bunch of crazy people who get paid to write and report. So anyway, we're getting rid of that. Now here's some good news. We're going to have the World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, the FIFA Club Cup, and then we're going to have the Olympics. So we have to have a Consular Affairs Bureau. We have very good, talented people there, but we are going to infuse technology, again, working with our consultants, to be able to, millions of people are coming into this country for this. But we've done it to improve customer service. For some of us who served in Congress recognize that about a year and a half ago, we had a meltdown under Biden. You couldn't get a passport. You have people calling, I have a cruise on Friday, my passport expires. In the month of March, we processed 2.78 million Americans, their passports. That is the historic, it's the largest single month processing of passports ever, and we think it's a good way to build the momentum to be able to do the visas. Two last points I want to make. We have a great team that you've built. I want to especially acknowledge Steve Woodcock. This is a person that doesn't have to be doing what he's doing. He has a very good life in Miami, my hometown as well. He has worked incredibly hard, has done it without any agenda, and we need to acknowledge him. I want to acknowledge Mr. Boulos as well, who did something really great last week. They told us this war between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda is intractable. It can never happen. It will never happen. I sent Mr. Boulos, your envoy. A week later, I look on my schedule, the signing of a declaration of peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. We signed it at the State Department last week. We hope it will lead now to a lasting, permanent peace that we hope to invite them back to Washington to sign. So two great, and we have a lot of good people working on our teams as well, but these are two great people. Mike Waltz alluded to this earlier, and this is the last point. In the first 100 days of the 47th presidency, 47 wrongfully detained Americans have been returned to the United States, thanks to your leadership and the diplomacy that was exercised to make that happen. 47 for the 47th president in the first 100 days, and that's all credit to you, Mr. President. Thank you for the honor to be able to serve alongside you, for you, and alongside all these excellent people.
Thank you very much, Marco. Really great job. So, I've been involved in a lot of groups of people over the years, good groups, bad groups, all types of groups. But I have been involved in some incredible groups, but I've never been more proud and impressed, frankly. Impressed is maybe even more important, but I've never been more proud or impressed than I am with this group. This is an amazing group of people, and I hope some of those television cameras were blazing and it was on so people could watch this because, frankly, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, this is an impressive group of people. I sat around being somewhat competitive. I said, well, let's see, who did the best job, who did the worst job? And I determined that everybody is like the same and there was no worst job. Everybody was outstanding. Everybody did a job. You couldn't pick a winner. The only thing you can say is nobody did a bad job or even a fair job. You're outstanding. And so I want to just congratulate you all. This is really something. And, we have a job to do. We've done a lot of work in this 100 days. We've established things that are going to start taking place in the next 100 days. I want to see what it's going to be like. I think we're going to have to do this in 100 days, Susie, and we're going to see some very big results from the things that we've done. But I just want to thank everybody. This is really very impressive, and I hope the people at home got to see some of it. Nobody's ever done public cabinet meetings. They were quiet for a reason, because they weren't impressive. And especially in the last administration, they were not impressive. But I just want to say that we're very proud of you, and I am in particular. Thank you all very much. Great job, and I think we're going to have some tremendous success for our country. And I don't know, it doesn't seem like a time to be asking questions. That was so impressive, that to be taking questions, why did you do this? Why did you do that? It just doesn't seem to be appropriate. I guess we probably have to take a couple because that was the purpose. But if you'd like to ask some, I think they should be very respectful questions at this point. This was an amazing meeting. And so if you'd like to ask a couple, if you'd like to pinpoint them to some of the secretaries, et cetera, would be fine. Yes.
Secretary Rubio, can I ask you a question? You brought up El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia as a formal request from this administration to me?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to. But I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it because that's how foreign policy works.
Mr. President, yesterday you told ABC News, Mr. President, you told ABC News yesterday that you could get Abrego Garcia back if you wanted to. Do you think President Bukele would turn you down if you made that request?
I really don't know. I know that he's been a great friend of our country. He's gotten a lot less money than this would take from us if we were going to build these jails and do what he's doing. And they run a very professional operation. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I really leave that to the lawyers, and I take my advice from Pam and everybody that is very much involved. They know the laws, and we follow the laws exactly.
Mr. President.
Yeah, please.
Transition, sir. You frequently took credit for the stock market highs. You said it was a reflection how well you were doing in the polls, and then after you were elected, you said the stock market highs were a reflection of how well the transition's going and the American people's confidence in your incoming administration. Now, the stock market's not doing so well, and you're saying that's the Biden stock market, yet you are the president. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'm not taking credit or discredit for the stock market. I'm just saying that we inherited a mess, both at the borders. You could look at every single one of the people here, and no matter who it is, they're doing better, and they are far superior to what took place for 4 years before us. When you look at prisoners being allowed to come into our country at will, just at will, people from mental institutions, gang members, drug dealers, when you look at that, what they've done to our country, and also having to do with finance, look at what happened with inflation. We had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but I would say in the history of our country, it ate away at people. And even though you saw a stock market going up somewhat, because in my case, I had the biggest stock market increase, 88% in the last term, in my last term. But I don't view the stock market as the end all. It's an indicator. But what the stock market really tells you, and when you look at the stock market in this case, is it says how bad a situation we inherited. I took place, this is a quarter that we looked at today, and we took all of us together. We came in on January 20th. So this is Biden, and you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden, because it doesn't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis. But we're turning it around. It's a big ship to turn around, and we're going to have the greatest country financially in the history of the world, I believe. I think we're going to do things that, and we had to do it. We reset the table. Every single country, with just about, without exception. I'd have to really think hard for who hasn't taken advantage. And I don't even blame those countries. I blame the person that was sitting right here where I am for allowing it to happen, where our country was ripped off on trade, hundreds of billions of dollars. And now we're doing better than we've done in a long time. You know, we were losing $4 to $5 to even $6 billion a day on trade with Biden. And now we have it down to a very manageable number, and the tariffs, for the most part, haven't even kicked in yet. So that's the way stock markets to me are an indication. But the big indication is what's happening, and the people around the table know what's happening.
The Ukraine deal is set to be signed in 24 hours or so. Is it true that the Ukraine minerals deal is about to be signed in the next 24 hours or so? There's some reports saying that. And if it's true, has the deal changed at all from the last time we've heard about it?
Well, I'll ask Scott to answer the question because he's responsible for it.
Yeah, our side's ready to sign. Ukrainians decided last night to make some last-minute changes. We're sure that they will reconsider that, and we are ready to sign this afternoon if they are.
Can you talk about those last-minute changes? What was removed or put in its place?
Nothing's been removed. It's the same agreement that we agreed to on the weekend. No changes on our side.
Just to put that in perspective, though, when I came here, I said, how much money have we given to Ukraine? The real number is about $350 billion. It's unthinkable. And we had no security. We had no nothing. We were just pouring money there, unsecured money, putting it in banks, and anybody could have. Europe, on the other hand, which is obviously that whole situation is much more important to Europe because we have an ocean in between. But Europe gave about $100 billion. It's a lot of money. It's a big sacrifice they made also. But they gave much less than we did. And their money is secured, totally secured, by deposits in banks. The deposits are largely Russian deposits. That's what Europe did, but their money is secured. So they gave $100 billion totally secured. We gave money like it's throwing it out the window. And it was done by Biden, and this is Biden's war. This isn't Trump's war. I'm trying to get out. And more than the money, they're losing about 5,000 young Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week, mostly. There's some people also being killed in towns where missiles should not have been shot, small cities and towns. But we are trying to save the lives of about 5,000 young, mostly soldiers, that are losing their lives a week. I see satellite photos, probably off one of his satellites, come to think of it, but I see satellite photos every week of fields with arms and heads and legs scattered all over. It's a violent, horrible situation. And more important than the money, I want to save the lives of people from other countries that are dying so stupidly, so needlessly, and they're dying. But I said, what are we doing? How did we get into this war? It would have never happened if I were president. Everybody knows, and it didn't happen for 4 years. Wasn't even thought of. I discussed it with President Putin a lot. Ukraine was the apple of his eye, but there was no way he was going to do anything. Zero chance. And I said, we feel foolish. The Europeans are putting up money. It's totally secure. They get the money back. We're putting up much more money. We have absolutely nothing. And I didn't want to make a complicated deal. I didn't want to make a deal that couldn't be made because Ukraine doesn't have very much money. They're going through a very bad period of time. It's been brutal. But I felt very foolish being in charge. So I said, well, we want something for our efforts beyond what you would think would be acceptable. And we said rare earth. They have very good rare earth. As you know, we're looking for rare earth all the time. Rare earth is called rare for a reason. And they have a lot. And we made a deal where our money is secure, where we can start digging and doing what we have to do. It's also good for them because you'll have an American presence at the site, Chris. And the American presence will, I think, keep a lot of bad actors out of the country, or certainly out of the area where we're doing the digging. So we made a deal, and I assume they're going to honor the deal. I put Scott in charge, and Scott's done it beautifully, but we haven't really seen the fruits of that deal yet. I suspect we will.
Mr. President, sir, you had
progress.
You had set a 90-day deadline during the executive order for Secretary Sykes and known to review whether to recommend to you whether to invoke the Insurrection Act to send troops to the southern border. Is that something you're still considering?
Well, I'm talking to them, and it's not hard and fast, but I'm talking to them, and I will tell you that the border is the most secure it's ever been. We have never had anything like it. And when you said, Christy, before, it's 99.999, and I guess that means one person maybe, or two people. It's actually turned out to be 3 people came across the border versus hundreds of thousands of people under Biden. And we're talking about people coming. Look, people, they have souls, they have hearts. Many of them are good, but we have a country that's under siege. We have a country that really is I think it's under attack. In many ways, worse than under attack, because there are no uniforms. You don't know who the attacker is, so you really don't. It's not like you're fighting an army. You're fighting people. You don't even know who they are. But 11,888 murderers, many of them murdered far more than one person, are roaming. Now, some of them have already been caught. A lot of them have already been caught and taken out. But we're being impeded by judges from doing our job. And hopefully that situation is going to be solved, because I think nobody wants to have murderers and people from jail, and I mean for serious crime. I remember the Biden people used to say, no, these are aliens that came into our country and they don't commit crime. I said, they don't commit crime, they commit worse crime. They make our criminals. Some of these people that they've allowed in through open border policies, the dumbest thing I've ever seen. You can look at some of these people and you say, this is not going to end well. But the people that they've allowed into our country are making our criminals look like the nicest people on earth. I will tell you, these are serious criminals. These are violent criminals. These are people that would kill you and wouldn't lose an ounce of sleep, and they wake up the next morning and they don't even remember it. This is a rough, tough group of people, and we've got to get them out of our country. And the law says, I believe, I hope, and I think Pam will be very successful in proving it, but we've run into, I would call them rogue judges. Somebody could criticize me for that. These are rogue judges. These are radical left, generally radical left, horrible judges. And we didn't lose all of these people. You know, we've lost a lot of people to death and to rape, all sorts of crimes committed by the people that poured into our country. And they came in totally unimpeded. Just come on in. And you see it every night. You'd see thousands and tens of thousands of people pouring into our country. We have no idea who they are. And to this day, we're looking for people. We have no idea. We hear that we have terrorists in our country that are so bad, they couldn't stay in any other country, but we're getting them out. And the group between Pete and Christie and Tom Holman and everybody working together, the people that you would least suspect are reporting them, getting it, and the public is reporting them. The public is seeing. The public is calling and they're saying, you know, I live in a house and next to me moved in a group of people and they are very violent. And would go and would find out and would say, yeah, you're right, they were really violent. And we have information on most of them. So I just think it's incredible what's taken place. But we right now have a very, very secure border. Right now we have the most secure border in the history of our country. So I don't think we have to worry about your question too much.
Mr. President, Prime Minister of Canada ran against, not only against the Conservatives, but also against you.
Well,
yesterday,
both parties.
Prime, yeah, and yesterday he spoke about American betrayal. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada, and if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, "Let's make a deal." You know, he was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy.
Why do you think
No,
so?
I spoke to him yesterday. Couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulated him. You know, it was a very mixed signal because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country. It was a pretty tight race, but he's a very nice gentleman, and he's going to come to the White House very shortly, within the next week or less.
Mr.
President,
when will you speak to President Xi of China? When will you
That'll
speak to
happen.
him?
I mean, look, right now, and I told you before, they're having tremendous difficulty because their factories are not doing business. They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. You know, somebody said, "Oh, the shelves are going to be open." Well, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30. You know, and maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way. They have ships that are loaded up with stuff, much of which, not all of it, but much of which we don't need. And we have to make a fair deal. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, but China, I would say, is the leading one, the leading candidate for the chief ripper offer. There has never been a country that's been ripped off more than the United States of America under some of the dumbest leadership, and it usually starts with the president. And you can go back, and I'm not just talking about Biden. It's been the worst. I mean, the trade deficits and everything else, he's been the worst. But he had no idea what he was doing, and I think somebody ought to look at the auto pen to find out who was really running this country, because it wasn't Biden. Because nobody could agree to what he agreed to.
Sir, what's your message for the girl who doesn't
He
get
put our
the job?
country at risk, at tremendous risk, and fiscal risk, financial risk. So I think we have it very much. I really believe that the next 100 days is going to be even better than this. Look, I read an editorial yesterday from a group that normally wouldn't write a good, that this is the most consequential presidency in history, in the history of our country. This is not a particular group that would write that kind of an editorial, but they see what we're doing and what we had to do. And I believe if this group, not just me, if this group wasn't here, I think our country was going to be in, if it was lucky, just serious trouble, but a lot worse than that. I think our country could have been a total disaster. Bad things were happening with our country, and we've stemmed the tide, we've turned it around, but we're going to really turn it around over the next 3 years, 3.5 years, we're going to turn it around, and then hopefully it'll be in such great shape. That's my goal, to put it in such great condition that it can't be destroyed.
Do you believe you will know?
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Macomb, that we're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide injunctions. sort of seemingly designed to curtail your power, specifically when it comes to deporting these illegal, violent aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate this and continue to deliver to the American people on
Well,
that
there are
aspect?
ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been used very successfully by 3 presidents, all highly respected, and hopefully we don't have to go that way. But there are ways of mitigating that. I want to thank you all very much. I thought this was an incredible cabinet meeting. I think there's probably has never been a cabinet meeting like this. You've never seen it on tape, that I can tell you. And I want to just congratulate everybody at the table. But we have a lot of work to do, but we're off to a great start. Thank you very much,
Do
everybody.
you enjoy, Mr. President, maybe in the White House back second time?
Shout out to the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States. He's always active. You could see for yourself. This man does 2 to 4 events every single day since he was inaugurated. Anyway, incredible. Profound, absolute, profound transparency. But with that being said, Caroline Levitt is currently having a conversation with the new media, which is the podcasters, influencers, creators in the White House. Check it out.
Influencer briefing here at the White House in the beautiful South Court Auditorium, Joe Biden's former office that he pretended to be his office. Now we're using it for its real purposes as an auditorium. And we are embracing and empowering new media like never before. You are all a testament to that. We're so grateful that you're here today. President Trump is truly the most transparent and accessible president in American history, and we are just following his example. That's a little bit why this press briefing today is tardy, because the president was hosting a more than 2-hour-long cabinet meeting with his entire cabinet. Each secretary went around the room to talk about the promises they are delivering on for the American public and the directives they are executing at the behest of the President of the United States. Can you ever remember a cabinet meeting in which the media were welcomed into the room to ask questions of the entire federal government? No, you can't, because it never happened. Joe Biden was afraid to speak to the press because he was mentally incompetent in driving our country into the ground. But fortunately, President Trump has been incredibly hard at work cleaning up Joe Biden's messes and making our country great again. Yesterday marked the president's official 100th day in office. The first 100 days of President Trump's second term can only be summed up as promises made, promises kept. He has ushered in the most secure border in modern American history, and he didn't need a bill from Congress to do it. Do you all remember that? They said we needed a bill. We didn't need a bill. We just needed a new president. The border is now closed, and the Biden border invasion has been halted. Illegal border encounters are down by 95%. Illegal alien gotaways, one of the top threats to our public safety, are down by an astounding 99.99%. And Fox News' Bill Melugin, who did exceptional reporting covering the Biden border crisis, was recently quoted saying, "If Fox were to send me down there right now, I would have trouble finding a single migrant on camera." That is the Trump effect. President Trump took on the cartels and designated Tren de Aragua, MS-13, and other vicious gangs and cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. Under President Trump, it is the policy of the United States to ensure the total elimination of these brutal organizations' presence in our country. And we are also beginning stages of carrying out the largest mass deportation in American history. We have already arrested more than 150,000 illegal aliens, and you can expect those numbers to ratchet up in the months ahead. On the economy, President Trump is rebuilding the greatest economy in the world once again. Since day one, he has focused on defeating inflation, bringing down the cost of living, and making the United States the best place in the world to do business, invest, create jobs, and innovate. The president later this afternoon in the East Room of the White House will be joined by CEOs from around the world who have committed trillions of dollars in investments right here in the United States of America. I don't think the president is getting enough credit for the massive deregulation campaign that he has launched across the entire federal bureaucracy. He himself has signed a number of executive orders to unleash rapid deregulation and reduce the cost of living for families and for small businesses, and we are seeing a big impact of this already. His deregulatory actions thus far will save nearly $11,000 per family of four over the next several years. And building on this success, the president has encouraged the rapid onshoring of jobs to restore America as our world's manufacturing superpower. He is effectively utilizing tariffs to bring the entire world to the negotiating table, offering more favorable terms for our country. When all is said and done, America will finally have fair and reciprocal trade, and our country will finally stop being ripped off. So far, as I mentioned, total investments under this administration are more than $5 trillion. The president has already created 345,000 jobs since taking office in January. 9,000 manufacturing jobs were created compared to the 6,000 manufacturing jobs lost per month in the final 2 years of the Biden administration. The labor force participation rate for those without a high school diploma is up. Inflation has dropped. And the price of prescription drugs last month was the largest drop ever recorded. In little more than 3 months, President Trump has America headed in the right direction. The good news is we are just getting started. We are very busy every single day here at the White House, literally working around the clock, 7 days a week, to restore the golden age of America. Hundreds of promises have been made and kept. There is certainly more work to do. The best is yet to come. But we are very proud of the efforts the president has made to continue the non-traditional media approach that he so beautifully executed on the campaign trail, which led him back to this office, talking to podcasters, social media content creators, and influencers like yourself. And again, we're so proud to welcome you to the White House here today so you can ask questions for the whole world to hear. So, Jack, great to see you, and why don't you kick us off?
Caroline, thanks so much for having us in today, and I appreciate the administration making yourself available and making it available to us and all of our followers. And I understand that you're going to be continuing these, and I think it's fantastic that really have everybody come in and be able to do this. One of the things that's been troubling me and has actually even affected me over the last 24 hours is the rise of violence that we've seen from elements of the far left, starting with things like Luigi Maggioni, these support for these unhuman organizations like MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and even, of course, the assassination attempts on President Trump, Thomas Matthew Crooks, and Ryan Routh, as well as numerous incidents against anyone who owns a Tesla, apparently. You don't really see the Democrats opposing these things. You see them in many cases either co-signing it or giving a wink and nod to it at the same time that they will be demanding that we follow due process for anyone who actually is a hardened criminal or some of the worst of the worst. What is the administration doing, DOJ-wise or FBI-wise, to combat this rise in violence that we're seeing?
It's a great question, Jack, and I absolutely agree with the premise of your question, which I usually don't when I take questions at a podium. But certainly you're right. We have seen a rise in political violence that stems from the left, dating back to the Black Lives Matter movement, which the left and the Democrats don't want to talk about much, but they burned down American cities. And the Biden administration did nothing to prosecute those who created that violence, oftentimes not just destroying businesses, but also lives and communities as well. You look at the rise of violence against the president himself and his supporters. You had 2 heinous assassination attempts from leftist lunatics, and the president is lucky and blessed to be here today because he was able to survive that political violence and those assassination attempts. Look at the recent attacks on Tesla, on Elon Musk's company. It's quite ironic because Democrats and leftists were the greatest fans of Tesla. Many Democrats drive Teslas to this very day, but then it's that their same party who is doing nothing to stop or condemn or discourage this violence from taking place. And in many cases, Democrat elected officials are actually inciting it and encouraging it. But that's not going to be allowed to happen anymore. The Attorney General was just in the cabinet room with the president and made it very clear to anyone who is inciting violence or participating in violence, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And no longer do we have a Justice Department that chooses prosecutions based on one's political affiliation. If you break the law, you will be held accountable for that. And I think we are truly restoring a fair and equal justice system in this country. The Attorney General spoke earlier about how there have been several cases brought against those who have been out to discourage this violence, but I don't think we will hold our breath. We won't wait for them. The president is leading by example, and I think the restoration of justice we've seen at the DOJ under the leadership of Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, who's doing an incredible job as the FBI director, is a testament to that. Thank you. Dom.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the honor to be able to ask a question to provide some transparency for the American people. Speaking of, I wanted to reference the election integrity. A lot of people in America are questioning if there's any possibility that we could see further investigations for anyone that could have violated our election integrity rights. And more importantly, so is there any possibility for names such as Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Rodham Clinton to ever just possibly get investigated for any of these, questions from the American people, for any of the wrongdoings they might have done?
Well, it's refreshing to actually hear a question on election integrity because the legacy media would never ask such a question. They're so out of touch with where the American people are on this issue. And Americans, you're absolutely right, want to have trust in our electoral system. Without free and fair elections, you cannot have a free and fair country. And President Trump has absolutely been a leader on this effort, talking about the irregularities we've seen in our elections, holding Democrats accountable for allowing illegal immigrants to participate in our elections. And he actually signed a recent executive order to protect the integrity of our elections. It will strengthen voter citizenship verification laws. It also directs the Attorney General to enter information sharing agreements with state election officials to identify cases of election fraud. So that correspondence between the federal government and the Attorney General with state and local officials has never happened before. It will allow the federal government to more easily identify these cases of fraud and then prosecute those who violate our election laws. And it is, again, appalling that any politician, regardless of party, could be against ensuring only American citizens can vote in American elections. How could anyone ever be against ensuring Americans need to have proof of identification to participate in our elections? You see the Democrats falling over themselves, trying to say this is somehow voter suppression. Absolutely not. We are trying to ensure that every American citizen, their vote actually counts and is not being outweighed by fraudulent votes and fraudulent ballots that we know have been cast in previous elections. So the president's taking this very seriously. He signed an extremely strong executive order directing action from the AG and the Department of Homeland Security as well to clean up our elections. And we expect Congress to do more on this front as well. Let's go over here.
On that question, and again, Caroline, thank you so much for hosting this. Really appreciate the opportunity to come in here and ask questions of you guys, and appreciate the president giving us some time of yours as well. On a follow-up on Dom's question, I still have a ton of my audience that is still asking questions about Hillary Rodham Clinton and the fact that it came out that her and the DNC funded the Steele dossier, which then led to a Crossfire Hurricane and all the FISA abuses that went against President Trump leading up to the 2020 election. Is there, you don't have to spill the beans, but is there something? Is there somebody still looking at it? We just want to know that it's not dead in the water, that Hillary's not just off scot-free after knowing what her and the DNC did leading up to the 2020 election.
It's a great question. Absolutely understand and agree with why you're asking it, but I would want to let the president weigh in on that front. I haven't discussed it with him, to be honest with you, but certainly we can ask him and get back to you.
All right.
Eric.
So Caroline, Madam Press Secretary,
You can call me Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline. Over the weekend, the White House Correspondents Association had their gala, they had their dinner, and Alex Thompson from now Axios, prior to that Politico, didn't really apologize, but came forward and said we, quote unquote, missed the story of Joe Biden's demise, his health demise, his cognitive demise during the 4 years. Jake Tapper has written the book since President Trump was elected that they missed the demise of Joe Biden as well. Fast forward to this lawsuit with CBS, right? So the media, legacy media, has not been held accountable. Will this lawsuit with CBS go to fruition? In other words, I would love to see it go to trial. so that we can see, so they can be held accountable. Additionally, will the New York Times be enjoined into that lawsuit? Because the New York Times has already stated that they agree with CBS. And Trump has said maybe we're going to sue the New York Times as well. And as a follow-up to all this, and it really does dovetail because it's not just left-leaning media, Fox News. Fox News put out a poll. I'm a statistician. The poll they put out was wildly biased against President Trump. Will Fox sue Fox? Will Trump sue Fox for their methodology in polling?
Two great questions. Let me hit the first one first. As for CBS and the White House Correspondents Association dinner, it was laughable. They gave an award to a journalist for talking about Biden's mental incompetence. He wrote a story about it years after the American people knew that story to be true. Didn't take much, just 2 eyes and 2 ears to realize that Joe Biden was completely inept, was unfit to serve as president of the United States. And nobody in the legacy media, nobody in this city wanted to talk about it. In fact, I recall being on President Trump's campaign and calling out Joe Biden's cognitive decline. And we were accused of manufacturing deepfakes. My predecessor accused us for manufacturing deepfakes from the White House podium when she knew and everybody in this White House knew the true status of Joe Biden's physical and mental fitness. And the mainstream media allowed that cover-up to take place because they refused to dig for the truth. They tried to get the American people not to believe their own eyes. It is truly one of the greatest cover-ups and scandals in American history. And again, this is why we are welcoming independent journalists and social media influencers and content creators into the White House with open arms, because all of you in this room and many of your colleagues in independent journalism talked about this online. Nobody gave you credence as far as the legacy media is concerned. And now they host cocktail parties where they're applauding each other and patting each other on the back for uncovering the truth. It was years later, and it's truly sad to see. But again, that's why we're making much needed and long overdue changes. As for the lawsuit against CBS, the president and his legal team fully intend to carry this lawsuit forward. The president put out a very strong statement in regard to that and fake news CBS this morning. And then as for the Fox News poll, president's right. These are fake polls. They overpoll Democrats. They underpoll President Trump's supporters. It's always been the case for media polls. They consistently underestimate President Trump's support amongst the public. That's why we don't really blink when we see them, to be honest with you. We're staying focused on the mission and moving forward. The president knows everything he's doing is exactly what he promised the American public he would do. And if you look at the key issues in the polling, the president is still ahead because Americans know he is delivering on them, on those issues for them. And if you look at the methodology, you're right. They're overpolling Democrats, underpolling Republicans. It's a clear-cut case of fake polling, no doubt.
If I may, also misinformation, though, right? And maybe as detrimental to the presidency as what CBS has done or the New York Times is doing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The president's spoken quite strongly about it, and I know he's made some phone calls to express his displeasure with it as well. Carolina, go ahead.
Thank you so much for having me here, especially as a legal immigrant, because the overwhelming fake news that Hispanics don't support President Trump, but we do, and we're very excited to have mass deportations because it affects our communities. My question is about immigration reform and DACA. During the first Trump administration, we saw that President Trump, like no other president, wanted to make a deal with the Democrats to give a pathway to citizenship to 1.2 million DACA recipients. I don't know, I haven't really heard anything coming out. Is there any policies surrounding that situation? And is there going to be immigration reform?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing your story. And the president overwhelmingly won the vote of Hispanic Americans in the previous election and swept counties on the border of Texas that are predominantly Hispanic counties because, to your very point, Hispanic Americans and legal immigrants to this country from all countries are so sick and tired of seeing, we're so sick and tired of seeing the mass invasion of illegal immigrants that was allowed to occur under the previous administration. And it was an issue the president ran on and he delivered on. These mass deportations are underway, and it is currently the position of this administration. We are focused on removing as many illegal alien criminals from our communities as possible. And not only are we doing that for law-abiding American citizens, but also legal immigrants, as you said, who are citizens now and came here the right way, waited their turn, paid their dues. It's a slap in the face to them. And so there's a lot of reforms that need to be made to our legal immigration system. The president has talked about that, but our initial focus right now and our priority is cleaning up the mess that the previous administration left us. And there's more work to do, but a lot of progress has been made thus far. CJ.
Yeah, also, thank you so much, Caroline, for having us here. Also on the topic of immigration, not only do I think, the legal immigrant community welcomes what the president's doing, but also the Black community. So I would love to get your reaction to recent comments made by Simone Sanders, who said that people of color would be next in line for deportation under this president. Now, that was a revelation to me and probably many others in the Black community. Being a lifelong American, I'm not really sure where Tom Homan would send me other than my childhood home in Augusta, Georgia. But why do you think this fear-mongering is being directed at the Black community over the issue of immigration? And do you think it's offensive to conflate illegal aliens who are rapists, traffickers, and sexual abusers with law-abiding citizens in the Black community?
It's absolutely insane, and it is racist what she is saying. The president intends on deporting illegal alien criminals who broke our nation's laws and are not only impacting communities across the country, but in particular communities of color in our inner cities. You remember the story out of New York City where young minority children were kicked out of their public school to make room for illegal immigrants to sleep on the floor of their cafeteria. That is putting America last. Doesn't matter your race, your religion, or creed. If you are a law-abiding American citizen, President Trump is going to put you first. And shame on Simone Sanders for saying that. She knows better, but she's trying to fear people into disliking this president with lies. But I think the American public are much smarter than she believes that they are, and that's why they reelected President Trump. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Caroline. So, as the youngest press secretary in history who is a wife and a mom, you've become widely popular with America First Patriots. As an 18-year-old, I can say you're definitely an inspiration to Gen Z. What has been the biggest highlight for you in these first 100 historic days?
Thank you for asking that and saying that, Bo. I am Gen Z. I think I heard the term zillennial because I'm right on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. Jack is cringing at that. But there's been so many highlights. Just being here every day is such a blessing and an honor. And I'll share a quick story to that point. The president, I'm only here because the president believed in me and uplifted me and so many others who are working so hard across this administration. This administration is filled with young, vibrant people who come to work every day hungry and eager to help accomplish the president's goals. And I think we're seeing a real reawakening amongst young people across the country. The president spoke directly to young people during his campaign, inspiring confidence in them and restoring hope in the American dream, basic common sense values of faith and family and freedom that truly do resonate with young people. The American dream of home ownership, of being able to afford to raise a family and to have children. It's a beautiful thing. And I think the president openly talking about it has inspired so many young minds and opened up so many young hearts. And I'm just so honored to be in this role. The president, he's wrote about it in his books and he's talked about it himself. When he was in his 20s, he was building buildings in Manhattan. So certainly he believes in the strength and the ability of young Americans across the country, like yourself, here at the White House at just 18 years old. Thanks for being here. Into the back row.
Thank you so much for having us here, Caroline. It underscores President Trump's transparency. Shifting focus a little bit to what's happening on our universities, President Trump has finally put American students over violent foreign nationals. And right now we're seeing the media whitewash the violence perpetrated on our college campuses. We see many universities trying to bypass President Trump's executive order. And my question is, how exactly does President Trump will make sure that these universities are being properly held accountable and violent foreign nationals who are taking over campus buildings are sent back home?
Yeah, well, to Jack's earlier question about political violence, this is another form of political violence we've seen stem from the left with the pro-Hamas movement that took place on college campuses and universities. In fact, I recall being in a Manhattan courtroom during the Alvin Bragg case against President Trump in the midst of the campaign. And we were in that courthouse watching the television as these violent riots unfolded on the campus of Columbia University. And I remember the president watching the television saying, when we are back, we are going to fix this. This is ridiculous, and immediately directed his campaign staff at the time to insert it into the speeches and to make sure the American public knew he was not going to tolerate violence on our nation's college campuses and the illegal harassment against Jewish American students. He has taken incredibly strong position on this already. He has brought many of these colleges and universities to their knees by threatening their federal funding and in a few cases cutting federal funds. If you violate federal law, you will not receive federal funds under this administration. It's very simple. If you allow the illegal harassment and violence against students of any race or religion on your campus, you will not receive federal funding. You are violating Title VI, which is federal law. The president's made that very clear. And you've seen many of these colleges come to the table and admit their wrongdoing and apologize for it because they know they were wrong. Unfortunately, we didn't have a president at the time who was holding them accountable, who was completely silent as students were being targeted. As for the visas, same is true. The president and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who's doing a tremendous job, have taken incredibly strong action on this as well. And Marco Rubio, as our Secretary of State, reserves the right to rescind visas from foreign nationals who have the privilege of studying on our nation's colleges and universities. And if you engage in illegal behavior, if you're engaging in activity that's contrary to our nation's foreign policy interests, then you will no longer have the privilege of coming and studying here. We're going to put American citizens and American students first, and only the best and brightest should be allowed to come to our country and study at our nation's colleges and universities. So again, such a pleasure to see all of you here today. Thank you so much for coming to the White House. We hope you enjoy the rest of this beautiful day at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and thanks for all that you do. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. We just heard Press Secretary Caroline Levitt, 27 years old, doing absolute great things. She's the youngest press secretary, and she's just a badass, really. But with that being said, 22 hours ago, Trump had this speech with the military. Here we go.
We've had such success in Michigan. I want to thank the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who's doing a really great job. The Houthis will tell you that. He's doing a very good job. Major General Paul Rogers and Brigadier General Daniel Kramer of the Michigan National Guard. Commander of the 127th Wing, Brigadier General Matthew Brancato, thank you very much. Deputy Commander Colonel David Spihar, wherever you may be, David. Where's David? Huh? Hello? Hello, David. Where the hell are you, David? Hello, David. Thank you very much. He's like the quiet type, right? But a killer, I hear. Command Chief Master Sergeant Bruce Hedrick. Bruce? Hello, Bruce. Thank you very much, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. Great job. For decades, they've been trying to save this facility. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just recently because I heard about it recently from some people, including your governor, who has done a very good job. She came to see me. That's the reason she came to see me, by the way, to save Selfridge. And she was very effective, along with some of the other politicians and some of the military people. They love this place. They love what it stands for, all the victories they've had here over the years. So I want to thank Governor Gretchen Whitmer for bringing it also to our attention very strongly. And, I'm not supposed to do that. She's a Democrat. They say, don't do that. Don't have her here. I said, no, she's going to be here. She's done a very good job, frankly, and she was very much involved with the Republicans. They worked together on saving it, and it was not easy. So I want to thank you very much, Gretchen. Good job. Thank you. Michigan House Speaker Matt Hall worked with Gretchen and everybody else. Thank you, Matt. Great job you're doing, too. John James, as you know, is right now working on the great, big, beautiful deal. I said, do me a favor, John, just stay back there and let's get your vote. Let's not worry about this today. But John was fantastic, as were all of the other representatives that you have that are right now in Congress working very, very, very hard, actually. And Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much. Great job. Done a great job. But I want to thank all of the people that I just mentioned, but in particular, when I look at the House members, they have been calling me all the time, we got to get it done. And they worked along with Gretchen and some others. And you're going to be very happy with what I have to say right now. I also want to thank Michigan's tremendous Republican delegation, the whole delegation, the whole state, because they're back in Washington and they're helping our congressman and they're helping us get the votes that we need, because I think if we get it, we have the biggest tax cut in history, and if we don't get it, you have the biggest tax increase. And for that, I will blame the Democrats, because we probably won't get any votes from Democrats, not for any reason other than we're Republicans, and the Democrats tend not to vote anytime we vote. The whole thing is so crazy. But it'll be the biggest tax increase in history if we don't get it. And that's why the Republicans can do it, but they have to stick together, and I think they are, from what I understand, really sticking together. I want to thank also Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, and John Thune, leader John Thune. They have been working together, and with the senators and the Congress, men and women, and I think they've got something that's it's big league, and it's very important. The biggest bill ever, if we get it done, and I think we will. For decades, Selfridge Air National Guard Base has stood as a crucial pillar of North American air defense, just 20 miles north of Detroit, where you're going to have a lot of car factories opening very soon, by the way, I might add, with access to the largest military airspace complex east of the Mississippi. Selfridge is tightly integrated with the National All-Domain Warfighting Center. This airfield saw its first military takeoff all the way back in 1917. Can you believe that? Wow, wouldn't that have been a shame to close this great history for something else that wouldn't be as good? The Tuskegee Airmen trained here during World War II, and generations of Michigan patriots have served here with great distinction. Unfortunately, that proud legacy was put at risk by the retirement of the key aircraft based here, in particular the A-10 Thunderbolt II Warthog, which I hear is an incredible plane. It's too bad. It's a long time it's been up there. I said, why don't we save it? I actually said that last time, and we did save it. I said that in my last term, and we did save it, but now it's coming to an end. But I hear the Warthog is incredible. And we have support aircraft and also the KC-135 Stratotankers. In recent years, many in Michigan have feared for the future of the base. They've been calling everybody, but the only one that mattered was Trump. They called Trump, and we got it done, which represents $850 million in economic impact across the state of Michigan, and probably it could be much more than that as we expand it out, and creates thousands and thousands of good and important jobs, both in the military and civilian jobs. So Gretchen, that's a big economic, you're not going to have too many economic development jobs like that. It's great. But today I've come in person to lay to rest any doubts about Selfridge's future and the vital role it'll play in our national defense. As Commander-in-Chief, I'm proud to announce that Very soon, we will replace the retiring A-10 Warthogs with 21 brand new F-15EX Eagle II fighter jets, the best in the world, fresh off the line. Brand new. And they have an expression, you know what that means, fresh off the line. That means they are brand new. They've never been anywhere. This is where they're going to be for a long time. And I saw one of them flew over my head, and I said, what the hell is that? That plane has serious power. So this is the best there is anywhere in the world. The F-15EX Eagle II. This will keep Selfridge at the cutting edge of Northern American air power. My administration will also continue with plans to replace the outgoing KC-135s and KC-46 Pegasus aircraft to continue that important refueling mission. And they'll be restocked with brand new top-of-the-line refuelers. For generations, the men and women of Selfridge have always been here, and they've always been for us. Whether you're Republican or you're Democrat, they've always been for us. They've been for America. And under the Trump administration, we're going to be there for you. The previous administration was willing to surrender Air National Guard fighter units across the country by retiring aircraft that were not being replaced. We are replacing. But under the Trump administration, we're correcting that injustice, and that starts right here in Michigan, where we have a big commitment to Michigan and to the state, even beyond this. This is an exciting time for the United States military. Since November, enlistment numbers for every branch of the armed forces have surged. Recruitment is now the highest it's been in 39 years. Now, if you remember that, you better hold on to those jobs or somebody will take them. Somebody will take those jobs so fast. Hold on to those jobs. Don't leave that job. Who would have thought? Because prior to November 5th, which is Election Day, I was hearing that recruitment was so bad, it was so impossible, it was hard to get people. And this goes not only for the armed forces, for the police, for firemen. People are proud of our country again. Big difference. But we had the worst numbers that we've ever had virtually. We couldn't get anybody, and now we're overstocked. We have waiting lists of people wanting to sign up and be with the military. They're proud of our country again. And I'll be supporting a record-setting $1 trillion investment in our national defense. We're going to go $1 trillion, the largest in the world, largest ever in our country, but no other country's invested that much. We have a $1 trillion budget for military this year, and we have tremendous plans, including increasing the scope of Selfridge. And I recently signed an order to begin construction of the Golden Dome missile defense shield to protect our homeland from missile attack. We're going to call it the Golden Dome. We had the Iron Dome, but somehow, Gretchen, Golden Dome sounds better to me. I don't know. Maybe it's not. What do you like better, Golden Dome or Iron Dome? What do you like better? Golden. Let's have a vote. Golden Dome. Oh, no, I think we're in trouble. Oh. How about the Iron Dome? Good, keep it, that's good. Because we made all the changes already, it'll be a little bit, even the renderings look very golden, look beautiful. No, it's going to be incredible, the latest and the greatest. A lot of it's going to be made in Michigan. A lot of it is going to be made, the Golden Dome. You know, other countries have it, in particular, Israel has it, and we have a much more advanced, and theirs is very good. We helped do it, we did it. But we have an advanced version now that really is incredible what it does. We had a case study of 169 out of 169. Every one of them just shut down. And I think we're entitled to it, don't you? I think we're entitled to it as a country. America's military will soon be stronger and more powerful than ever before, and Selfridge Air National Guard Base will remain at the center of the action. And I just want to say we're building some of the greatest submarines and various other ships, but submarines in particular, we have a monopoly on great submarines. We're building the greatest in the world, most powerful machine ever built. And we're doing some things that are just incredible. In one way, you hate to do it, but in another way, you really have no choice. And we're fighting very hard on the China front and the Russia front with Ukraine and what's happening in the Middle East, and a lot of good things. You're going to be hearing a lot of good things. It's a shame. When I left office not so long ago, we had no wars. We defeated ISIS in 3 weeks. It was supposed to take 5 years, they told me. Sir, it's going to take about 5 years. We did it in 3 weeks. Raising Cain, he's now your top, he's your top person. He's the head of the Joint Chiefs. And I did that because he was the one. He said, sir, we can do it in 3 weeks. I said, 3 weeks? They told me 5 years. No, sir, you can do it in 3 weeks, sir. And I said, let's see if you can do it. And he did it. He had a little time left over, actually. And ISIS was gone, totally defeated. And he's the man we wanted. That's the man I said, if I do this again, I'm going to put that guy in charge, because he did things that nobody else was able to do. And nobody else even thought it or even suggested. So I'm very proud to have him head up the whole military operation along with Pete and some other great people. So I just want to say that Michigan, it's been my great honor to be here. I've had tremendous success in Michigan. Not all Republicans have, but I have. And not just this time either. We had we did tremendously well in 2020, and we did incredibly well in 2016. In 2016, they said it couldn't be won. It couldn't be won, but we won, and we won by a lot. So it's a special place, and I don't forget my friends, and Michigan's been my friend. And I want to just thank everybody here. I want to congratulate you, actually, because there are a lot of people wanted this to happen to their neck of the woods, but it's happening for you. So congratulations, and God bless you all. God bless our military, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations.
Only because the Commander-in-Chief invited me. Mr. President, thank you for restoring the warrior ethos inside our formations, for rebuilding our military, reestablishing deterrence around the world, and making Americans proud to wear the uniform. That recruiting surge we're seeing right now is because they know they have a Commander-in-Chief that has their back. That's my message to these men and women every single place we go. All I ever wanted when I was in combat was to know that my commander had my back, no matter what. And with Donald J. Trump, that commander has your back. And that means something to the men and women of America, and that's why we're seeing a record surge in recruiting. That's why we're locking down our southern border. That's why our enemies know we mean business, because we have a Commander-in-Chief that has our back, and he has the back of this base as well. God bless you all. Thank you.
Well, I hadn't planned to speak, but on behalf of all the military men and women who serve our country and serve so honorably on behalf of the state of Michigan, I am really damn happy we're here to celebrate this recapitalization at Selfridge. It's crucial for the Michigan economy, it's crucial for the men and women here, for our homeland security and our future. So thank you. I'm so grateful that this announcement was made today, and I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. It's because of your leadership this is happening. No one else could save Selfridge. We've tried for decades. It took you, Mr. President. This is why the people of Michigan elected you, sir. You are not forgetting us. This is the first time in decades where we can all say Selfridge is winning. We are winning because of you, President Trump, and I know all of these troops here will not let you down with this new fighter mission, which will keep Selfridge Air National Guard Base thriving for the next 30 to 40 years. Thank you, Mr. President, for remembering us and keeping your commitment when we saw you in Washington a few weeks ago. Thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for coming to Macomb County. Thank you for coming to Michigan. And thank you for providing another important service of the F-15X. This means that these folks are going to be continuing on the mission for America for the coming decades. Because of your leadership, America's back again, Macomb's back again, Michigan's back again, and Selfridge will be leading the way. Thank you, Mr. President, for showing that leadership.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. God bless y'all. With that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God. Shout out to the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States. He's working really hard. He's been doing 2 to 4 events every single day since he was inaugurated. I keep saying that because it's been a long time where, for example, Joe Biden, I mean, you never saw what he did. You know, when you did see him, he was falling off stairs. He was walking into the Amazon rainforest. He was sleeping on the world stage. That's a bad look for the United States. But for some reason, people are forgetting what they had 4 years ago. All right. God bless you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to double tap your screen. And let me see. Can we do one more? Can we do one more? Can we do one more before I go? Let me see. All right. For the leaps in the comment section or in the chat, I'm going to do CNN one more time. Here we go.
Trump moments ago claiming America's inflation problem is over.
We're ending the inflation nightmare, the worst that we've had probably in the history of our country.
Only, as you're about to see, that nightmare is far from over because today, Team Trump was laughing when pressed on whether they're making progress on trade deals with countries around the world. Here's the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick.
We have every country in the world, just like Donald Trump has said, who wants to do a deal with us. Now, here's the point. I have a deal. Done. But I need to wait for their prime minister and their parliament to give its approval, which I expect shortly. I'm not going to tell you what country.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, as if it's like playing a game with a kid. I'm not going to tell you what country. I mean, it felt very flippant, right? As if this were a game. But of course, this is incredibly serious business. The effects of Trump's trade war are already being felt. You know, we got this report today from longtime retail price expert Dana Telsey. Carl Quintanilla at CNBC had posted a clip of it. So we went and got it from Dana because it's amazing what it goes through with the prices. Dana is in the business of tracking prices. And here's what she's already seeing happening. If you just look at these prices, these are week-on-week prices as she was looking. Barbie up 42.9%. If you were to buy a Barbie doll, a Decan White Puffer.
up.
These are just the
Oh
items
my
that she's
God.
tracking week in and week out. So Decan
Barbie
White Puffer,
definitely up, I'll tell you
37%
that much.
increase. And a drill kit, one of those ones where you can put all of your drill equipment and screwdrivers and stuff on the side from Tractor Supply, up 3.8%. So prices are rising. Now, sporadically, some things not at all, and some things, as you can see, a whole lot. And today, we are learning that Trump was not okay with the ideas that Americans might find out just how much more they're paying, where the tariffs are impacting them. So this morning, there was a report. It came out, said Amazon is going to show the price of an item, and then next to it, they're going to break out the tariff so that a consumer would understand exactly where a tariff is hitting, exactly why a price is going up, and by how much. So Trump finds out about it, and then here's what happens. So first, his press secretary goes out and calls it a hostile act.
Of course.
This is a hostile and political act by Amazon.
So Amazon being transparent with consumers about tariffs is hostile and political. That's how it started. Just to be clear, transparency is hostile and political. So then what did Jeff Bezos do? Well, Amazon retreated, and really quickly. In a statement the company wrote, the team that runs our ultra low-cost Amazon Haul store considered the idea of listing import charges on certain products. This was never approved and is not going to happen. They didn't even want to use the word tariff, they're import charges. Well, maybe it's not going to happen because Bezos got a call from Trump, who, according to sources, was so angry that he did call Bezos directly.
Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly, and he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
Okay, he did the right thing. It is worth saying again what the right thing is in Trump's view of this. The right thing was to prevent consumers from seeing the cost of tariffs on items they are buying on Amazon. The right thing to do was to hide the tariffs. So now why is Trump doing this? Because up until now, his team has said, sure, price hikes are happening. Don't worry about it. They are a small price to pay for Trump's MAGA agenda.
As American people ready to get the country back on track and do what it needs to, or do what it takes to make that happen? Absolutely. We're going to have to adjust some prices for it.
Access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream.
There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that.
All right, that little disturbance is quickly turning into anything but, especially after Trump just fired back tonight at China.
Well, nothing's going to happen.
You know business.
Terry,
I want to ask you.
I do know business.
Yes.
And
So 145% tariffs on China, and that is
That's good.
basically
That's
an
good.
embargo.
They deserve it.
It'll raise prices on
They
everything
deserve
from
it.
electronics to clothing to building houses.
You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to eat it.
That's mathematics.
China probably will eat those tariffs, but at 145, they basically can't do much business with the United States.
All right, eating the full cost of that, not something that any economic model would show is reasonable. And as for China's point, they're coming out now and saying they won't eat it. They are not backing down in Trump's trade war, neither side making any sort of move to do that. Although Trump, of course, did slash his own intended tariffs on China last week without negotiating with them. The Chinese leadership, though, seems to be more emboldened. Just take a look at this new video. It comes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The communist government vows in this to, quote, never kneel down in Trump's trade war.
Bowing to a bully is like drinking poison to quench thirst. It only deepens the crisis. All bullies are just paper tigers.
Okay, I mean, and it goes on for this is in 2 minutes. I mean, there's no ambiguity. You might sometimes say, oh, well, the Chinese, they be a little bit, ambiguous about what they want. No, that's very clear there. You don't actually see Trump in it, but it is clear that they are directing this directly at him. And the video is now resonating with people across China. If you look at some of the posts on Chinese social media, and we do this every day, no kneeling. This video brought tears to my eyes. The whole world is uniting against the bully. China will never kneel or back down. And then this, show them the sword. Jeff Zeleny is live in Macomb County, Michigan. That's where Trump is speaking right now in his 100 days in office to celebrate that. Jeff, how worried is the White House right now about the economy, these prices?
Aaron, there's no doubt that is one of the central challenges facing the president and the White House. You wouldn't necessarily know it, though, by listening to the first hour of the president's remarks here. He's still behind me on stage calling up supporters of various stripes. He's talking more about his last act than his next act. But the economy, no doubt, is front and center in all of these challenges. His administration is trying to work toward a budget and tax plan, now setting a deadline of July. And that is what his presidency indeed could hang on. Mr. Trump has barely talked about that here tonight, or tariffs. I mean, tariffs also are part of the confusing, pattern of the first 100 days. But I've been spending some time here talking to voters in Macomb County, the surrounding area, that sent him to the White House. And yes, President Trump's supporters largely still support him. But, Aaron, one thing I detected in conversation after conversation was that economic anxiety. They remember that the president campaigned here and elsewhere on bringing prices down. It was that simple. So the owner of a diner not far from here, Aaron, summed it up perhaps best in a conversation I had with him. He said, look, it's too early to give the president a grade. He said if the economy improves, if tariffs work, he'll be a success. If not, he said it will not be good. He doesn't look at polls. He looks at who's in his restaurant. And consumer confidence is down as we head into the summer months here. So, yes, the economy is front and center. The president, though, has barely talked about it here tonight. Aaron?
All right, Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. And everyone is here with me. Peter, to this point of consumer confidence and uncertainty, you had one of the, an American bellwether, backbone of America company, General Motors, come out here in the past day and say, sorry, I know we were supposed to report earnings. We can't. We need a couple more days to even do it. I mean, it's an unprecedented thing to even think about. A company like General Motors coming out and doing that. Is Wall Street scared about stuff like that?
You know, I think the longer this goes unresolved, the first thing we saw was that people started not giving guidance. That was the first thing that really sort of harked back to COVID, right?
When Southwest or American Airlines.
Exactly,
yeah.
where they do not have enough certainty or enough information, because literally we do not know anything more than we did on Liberation Day about any of these, and the actual numbers and what countries and whatnot. Each day it keeps going further and stays unresolved. The companies are going to try and come up with some way to sort of either postpone the delivery of earnings and guidance in some way. And this is tranche number 2. The first was not to give guidance, and now it's to actually hold back earnings and guidance altogether until they get some kind of information, right? Because it's a 50-50 play here. You know, they may know tomorrow what the numbers are going to be and be able to give a good number, or down the road, maybe people's focus. You know, we all have sort of ADD in a way. You know, every day we're being given something else to either worry about or be positive about. And so a couple more days off, maybe we won't think about what General Motors did.
I think this is really big. And especially for Mary Barra. She is one of the most highly respected Fortune 500 CEOs. She has been in the auto industry for 30 years. She represents not just the big automakers, but the entire supply chain. She was on a dais at a summit last week, and there were so many quotable moments there. But the first thing that she said, I wrote it down because it's staggering. She said, "I need clarity, and then I need consistency." And then she continued from there to talk about it takes 5 to 6 years to manufacture a car. And what's at risk here is not only shareholder equity, but of course, all those folks who are employed in the entire supply chain. Now, I think they dialed back because the administration also pulled back on some of those levies today in reaction. So some of this is competitive, but it's kind of like saying you're going to go to the DMV and you're going to go take a driver's test. And you're going to arrive down there, and we're not going to tell you the rules. We're not going to tell you, do you need to parallel park or do you need to stop at the signals, right? What she's basically saying is stacking levies on levies for different auto parts. I don't even have clarity what that looks like. I need a line of sight. I need a freedom to operate. This was a very big thing for her to come out and do.
Of course, everybody's going to have their own reservations about the tariffs or whatnot, but the fact is, nobody had the balls to renegotiate trade deals. Okay? Nobody. Now Trump comes along, is trying to renegotiate the trade deals we have with every country, especially China. I mean, why would we be getting pharmaceuticals from China, Denmark, Ireland? I get it. If China was our ally, okay, great. But why wouldn't you want, if you're an American, why wouldn't you want pharmaceuticals production to come back to the United States? Or at least go to our allies. You know? Anyway, with that being said, Los Angeles is going through 35% drop in the port of Los Angeles. And also California has become one of the largest, once again, one of the largest economy in the world, surpassing Japan. Here we go.
Of Los Angeles says it does expect shipping volume from China to plunge about 35% next week. The president addressing this just a short time ago.
You know, they're sending boats, the biggest boats in the world, carrying cargo like nobody's ever seen before. These are the biggest boats in the world, biggest cargo ships in the world, and they're coming and they're turning around in the Pacific Ocean. They're doing a big U-turn and going back because they don't want the goods, because 145% tariff. But at a certain point, I hope we're going to make a deal with China. We're talking to China.
And we're joined now by the official who gave that warning about the dip in containers coming into the port, Gene Soroka, the executive director of the Port of Los Angeles. Gene, thanks for being with us. Can you just explain to us why you're expecting port volume to shrink more than 35% next week? Is this all tariff related? Is it all China, or is it other countries too?
Good afternoon, Brianna. It's all tariff related, whether it be China, which now, if you buy a product from there, it's 2.5 times more expensive than it was just last month. The 10% tariffs on all other countries, including those in the Pacific Rim that we trade with, are also expensive. So we saw some big companies bring inventory in over the last 9 months to try to build up stock. Not everyone had the ability to do that and store. Those small to middle-sized companies are really in a quandary right now. So we had about a 7% uptick in business here in the month of April. That's the end of the surge to pad inventory. The month of May right now, we're projecting next week's volume to be down by 35%. Ship sailings, 17 of them have been canceled out of a scheduled 80 or so. That shows that the drop will be precipitous and fast.
And I think you handle more container ships than any other port, right? So how long is this sustainable for port workers there in LA?
We're at a crucial time right now. We're the largest container port in the Western Hemisphere, 25 years running, a leading indicator of this great U.S. economy. And what we're seeing now is that dock workers, truckers, warehouse folks will be having less job opportunities beginning next week. If you're a trucker today, hauling 4 and 5 containers, beginning next week, you'll likely be just moving 2 or 3. Dock workers who've been getting overtime, working double shifts, will likely work less than a full work week. This will hit our local and regional economy immediately.
Gene, talk to consumers who obviously rely on these products coming in about what kind of products you're talking about, how this might compare to some of the shipping disruptions that they became familiar with during COVID.
Wherever you're watching or listening to this broadcast right now, likely you're looking or wearing at something that was brought in from overseas. 90% of trade moves on water, 45% of our business here at the Port of Los Angeles is with China, whether it be furniture, electronics, appliances, clothing, and footwear. The American consumer will be affected with less choice here in the weeks ahead on store shelves and online buying platforms, and likely prices will rise. These tariffs will be passed on in cost structure to the American consumer.
And there's a lot of talk right now by the Trump administration trying to create a sense of optimism that they're moving in the right direction towards coming to a deal with China. But until then, these tariffs, these 145% tariffs are still in place. Will shipping only rebound if there is an agreement that actually drops or largely drops the tariffs to something manageable?
That's my belief, Brianna. I worked in China for a number of years, maintained strong ties to the business community there. I'm on the phone with folks I trade with every night when I get out of the office or off the road into my hotel room. And what they're telling me is that even if a trade deal was reached at this very moment, it would take the shipping lines approximately 2 weeks to reposition their vessels and start loading up the backlog of inventory and container cargo, and then another 2 weeks to come across the Pacific here to Los Angeles. That's a month that we'll see to get this trade balance back in motion as we're used to seeing it.
And Gene, obviously, it takes longer to get products on container ships to the East Coast. You're closer to when you're talking about Chinese products specifically. When are we on the East Coast going to start seeing a similar trend at ports here?
The impacts that we on the West Coast see usually lag by about 4 to 6 weeks on the East Coast, just because of transit time and order delivery processes. The same will be coming towards our friends up and down the Atlantic and across the Gulf Coast.
All right, we'll be looking to see how that does time out. Gene Soroka, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today. During an interview that aired last night, President Trump was asked about the impact that his tariffs could have on his supporters. Here's what he said.
People are worried, even some people who voted for you saying, I didn't sign up for this. So how do you answer those concerns?
Well, they did sign up for it, actually, and this is what I campaigned on.
With us now is Mark Short. He served as the director of White House Legislative Affairs under President Trump. He's also former Vice President Mike Pence's chief of staff. Mark, great to have you.
Thanks, Bill.
And you're hearing Trump over and over blaming President Biden. But we should also remember that he bragged about the economy that he inherited. And he sort of was saying that it wasn't Biden giving him a great economy. He called it the Trump effect. He was saying that it was the markets and Americans excited that he was coming in. How long can this work for him, or does it even work for him?
Well, I think he's actually pretty good at being able to shift blame. I think the reality was that the markets rallied after his election lead into his inauguration day because they wanted to see a continuation of his first administration policies, which I think were really successful in deregulating the economy and cutting taxes. I think today's economic reports and data are pretty devastating, and I think only Baghdad Bob and Peter Navarro could explain this as positive news. I think it's terrible to see not just the GDP declining, but prices are going up. You're seeing stagflation for the first time since the Jimmy Carter era. And so I'm sure there's a desire in the administration to put this blame on somebody else, but I think that I think it's clearly a result of the trade policy. I think a lot of people want to see him go back to the first administration policies of deregulation and lower taxes.
Has he squandered his goodwill that he came in on?
No, I think he has enormous goodwill. I think he has enormous loyalty and support among his followers. I think one of the challenges, though, also, Brianna, is like, even if you agree with the trade agenda, I think it's been difficult to understand their simple explanation. Is this because of fentanyl? Is this because we're trying to lower trade barriers? Is this because we don't like trade deficits with other countries? It seems like the narrative continues to shift as the explanation for this. And so I think if there was a clear explanation, say, here's the pain we're going to ask you to go through in order to get to this result, that people would stay with him longer. But I think he still has enormous loyalty among his supporters.
There has been a refrain that we've heard from some administration officials, and now it seems we're hearing it from Trump, like, you don't need these cheap Chinese goods, right? He was asked about whether he'd spoken to President Xi. He dodged that, and he instead tried to stress economic difficulties that China's having because of the tariffs. And he said instead they have ships loaded up with stuff, much of which we don't need. Do you think Americans understand that actually if they look around their houses, maybe there's some wants there, but there's also a lot of needs that are coming from China?
I think it's a pretty elitist perspective. I think the reality is that Americans want to be able to purchase goods because we can afford to. It's a good thing that America is as wealthy as it is. It's easy in some ways to eliminate a trade deficit if you drive the economy deep enough into a recession and people can't afford to buy goods. So, we have this narrative constantly about what a trade deficit is, and it only looks at one half the equation. It doesn't look at the current account deficit and foreign investment into the United States. We have a trade deficit because Americans can purchase more things. And actually, last month, the trade deficit continued to balloon. And so, even with this administration's policies, that's continuing to grow. And that's in many cases because America can afford to.
35% drop in cargo arriving at the Port of Los Angeles expected next week. How much of an effect is that going to have politically?
I think it's going to be a huge effect in a couple of weeks, Brianna. I think that, right now you're hearing the numbers, you're seeing the numbers, you're seeing consumer confidence go down 5 months in a row. But if there's actually shortages of supply in grocery stores and other department stores, I think that's going to have a much different impact on voters.
Welcome to the live show. All right. Like we know, OG Trump had a cabinet meeting this morning that lasted for 2 hours, and he also answered some questions. Also, Pete Hegseth. He's been a big issue in the Trump administration for sure, and he's been making the news for sure. But a lot of American business are now trying to show consumers the potential increase in their prices once this tariff keeps going on. The tariff is still on right now. And this tariff the purpose is for renegotiation of these trade deals that America has fallen into for years, for decades, basically.
got the CEO of Ford with us right now, right on the back of this, John, Sarah, and Kate joining us, Jim Farley. And Jim, I really appreciate your time. So here, we just got these numbers as you're hearing John and I talk about them. You're, of course, at your Ford Expedition plant in Louisville, Kentucky. U.S. economy shrinking 0.3% in the first quarter, significantly weaker than expected, a dramatic turnaround from the fourth quarter of last year, and all of that ahead of the tariff announcement. So, you know, we're in a world right now, consumer confidence expectations of the future are their lowest in 13 years. Where you're standing right now, is that fear showing up in the dealer lots?
Well, not for us in auto. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm at our most profitable auto company, and Ford is the most American auto company. We make 80+% of our vehicles here. And to your point, you know, it's tough to tell right now. The reason is because we're seeing double-digit sales increases since March and April, but we ran this employee pricing. I don't know if that's unique to us. There may be a lot of customers going out and buying cars, you know, before what they fear is the imports increasing prices. That may be a dynamic we're certainly seeing. Our inventories are shrinking at the dealership.
All right, and so you're saying what some of this might be is people rushing to buy ahead. So you can't, I guess, is what you're saying. You can't tell if there's going to be weakness because you're taking from the future right now. That's the unknown.
We're just seeing a lot of people respond to our employee pricing, and Ford is an American company. I think, you know, for many years, you know, half of the vehicles sold in the U.S. are imported. Maybe not everyone knew that, so it's hard for me to tell. I think we're in the first or second inning here of a 9-inning game, but so far for us in the auto, you know, the revenue's been pretty strong. We'll report earnings next week, and you'll see that as a trend. But as you said, there are a lot of ins and outs when it comes to tariffs.
All right, I want to ask you that, but you just said something really important there, Jim. You said that you're going to report earnings next week. Stellantis, your rival here, they just came out hours ago and said they can't forecast anything from this point on. They suspended all guidance for the future because they said tariff-related uncertainties. General Motors, your colleague Mary Barra came out and said they could not release earnings yesterday. They could not release forecasts. They had to put the whole thing on hold for a few days because they just couldn't get clarity on what the numbers are. Are you telling us that you're just not seeing that at all? Do you feel that, you know, you've got the clarity for your own numbers, the clarity for guidance, you're just in a completely different world than they are right now?
No, I would say, first, I don't want to preview our earnings, but I will say some basic things. We know exactly what the tariff bill would look like, you know, in terms of cost for the company. We know the offsets. What we don't know is how competitors are going to respond. You know, we're the most American company, so if there's any company that can manage through these tariffs, it's Ford. We make 80% here. And our competitors are different. Even the domestic competitors are some of the biggest importers into our industry. So, you know, they will have a totally different tariff bill. You don't think of all the three domestic companies as the same. We're not. We're really different. But as I said, you know, next week, I think we'll be able to tell people kind of what the tariff bills for Ford would look like, the most American company, what kind of offsets. What we don't know, Aaron, is what are the import competitors going to do? Yeah. Are they going to build 10 factories? Are they going to take pricing and pass it on to the customers this summer? You know, the stuff we built now is priced. If we announce a price increase now, it'll go into play in July and August. So we have to wait until then to see what our competitors do. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. No, it does on some level, but you keep emphasizing the most American company. You've now said it. I haven't counted exactly how many times, Jim, but obviously you're making that point loud and clear. Does that prevent you from any pricing increases? I mean, are you confident at this point saying that there's not going to be any price increases coming from Ford trucks or cars this summer?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I'm not going to be specific about our pricing, but I will say one thing. We're announcing today that we're going to extend our employee pricing through July 4th. That's a big commitment. I don't know if the other competitors are going to be able to do that. but we want to keep our prices competitive and low. We sell some of the highest volume vehicles in America, like the F-150. And we think this is an opportunity for Ford having a different footprint. We have a different exposure to tariffs. And that to us is an advantage.
Yeah. All right, so I understand what you're saying. Employee pricing through July 4th. Obviously, you're announcing that right now, but not commenting on prices beyond that and whether there'll be increases. You also said that you understand the tariffs, and I want to ask you more about that because so many people don't, the markets, not just others in your industry, of course, but across in other industries where there's been suspension of forecasts, whether it's from just economic uncertainty or the tariffs themselves. There was a line on a CNBC article trying to summarize the changes in the auto tariffs yesterday. I just wanted to read it to you, really also for everyone to understand out there what we're dealing with, see if anyone can follow along. It says, parts-related reimbursements include potential offsets of amount equal to 3.75% of the value of a U.S.-made car assembled before May 1st. After that, the reimbursement cap is lowered to 2.5% of cars' value until April 2027. The administration calculated those rates by applying a 25% duty to 15% of the value of a U.S. assembled vehicle in the first year, 25% duty to 10% of that value in the second year. Now, you can just go ahead and speed up my voice like a drug disclaimer. Does that all make sense? And do you actually think that will last more than 24 or 48 hours when all the rules could change again?
We'll see, but here, let me take you through the math. You know, a $40,000, $50,000 F-150, 75, 80% of the parts are made in America. But to keep it competitive and affordable compared to companies that import from overseas like Mexico or South Korea or Japan, we have to import certain parts. And a lot of parts like fasteners, washers, carpet, wiring looms are just not available. We can't even buy those parts here. So for affordability and available the supply chain, what the president did is say, okay, for 15% of your parts, if you make a vehicle in the U.S. and you make 75% of the parts in the vehicle from the U.S., there's 15% exemption from the tariffs. And also the second thing he said is compounding. We have a lot of parts that come from overseas that have multiple tariffs. We have the fentanyl tariffs, we have the China tariffs, we have the reciprocal tariffs. Yes. Some of our parts went from 0 tariff to 140% tariff. So they decided to say you get 1 tariff, it's 25%. That clarifies things, but boy, do we have a lot of work to do with the administration on exports, and these parts, affordability of parts is a really important thing for America because we got to keep the vehicles affordable. Yes, we want to make them like Ford does in the U.S., but we also want to make the vehicles affordable that are built in the U.S., and the parts are critical for that.
So, crucial, and you say, boy, a lot of work we need to do with this administration, but, again, as you stand there in an expedition plant, you were saying 75 to 80% of the parts come from the U.S. And I know that's a general number. I'm not saying that the plant you're standing at necessarily specifically, but so that means 20 to 25% aren't. Are you willing to actually put real billions of dollars of capital expenditure on the line to change that number, to make a long-term decision that Ford is going to bring more plant activity, parts and beyond to the U.S.? Are you at that point or not yet?
We are. We're building a new plant in Ohio and Tennessee. We're number 2 to Tesla in electric. We're number 3 to hybrid to both the Japanese competitors. We're investing across these different kinds of powertrains. We're kind of the only one who offers all of it. You can get electric F-150, a hybrid F-150, a V8 F-150, EcoBoost F-150, and we don't really care. We just want people to have the choice. So we're building 2 brand new factories in the U.S., and we're the most American already. As far as parts are concerned, that's a good question. Now, we have a lot more work to do to, can we even do this, that 15 or 20%? And that's what we have to work through. Look, we're expecting our competitors to do what Ford's already done, which is to localize more production like this plant here in Kentucky.
So let me just, before you go, and I know you have to go, but have your conversations with the president been productive? And do you have a direct line to him to talk to him about this?
We have worked with his team like every day for the last couple months. And so a very high level of engagement. Look, the administration knows Ford's a bit different. And we've also been working with Mary and Stellantis too as a group, because we recognize how important this moment is to get this all right and kind of figure it out together. And I have to say that the engagement has been very high. Bill Ford's talked to the president a couple times. I know that's, typical. But look, we're all trying to figure this out to do the right thing for the country. And it's going to take a little time. But we never left the U.S. I guess that's my point. We just never left. So we're in a different situation than the other companies. And we also want to do the right thing, like we're building 2 new plants. But we have to figure out this affordability part of this.
All right. Well, Jim, I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. I tried making pancakes for my daughter. I messed that shit up so bad. I don't even know if pancakes goes in the oven or in the pan. God damn. Jesus. Man, I miss my wife, man. All right, here we go.
Numbers on the U.S. economy giving us our first glimpse of the impact of President Donald Trump's sweeping policy changes. The critical GDP report out in the last half hour shows that economic growth has sharply declined in the first 3 months of the year, contracting at an annualized rate of 0.3%. That's the worst quarter the country has seen since 2022. We'll likely hear from the president shortly on this as he prepares to convene his cabinet in just a few hours. Well, that's after touting his record for his first 100 days in office during a rally in Michigan last night, vowing that, quote, "You haven't seen anything yet." Well, CNN's Matt Egan joins us now live from New York with the latest on all these numbers. Matt, good to have you with us. So just break down these results for us, the worst since 2022.
Yeah, Linda, that's right. The U.S. economy is shrinking for the first time in 3 years. As you noted, gross domestic product, GDP, it's the broadest measure of economic output, and it did decline. This was a bit of a surprise. Consensus was for really slow but positive growth, although there were some forecasters out there anticipating an even bigger drop in GDP. And so why did this happen? Well, it's really clear that this is directly linked to the president's trade war and the supply shock that the tariffs set off, right? We had businesses and consumers who were trying to beat the clock on tariffs, right? They were scrambling, trying to front run those tariffs and trying to import goods to try to avoid those import taxes. And what happens is when imports increase, especially when they increase as dramatically as they did in the last quarter, that actually subtracts from GDP. And so that's what we were bracing for, and that is exactly what happened. Another factor here, there was government spending, particularly federal government spending declined. That was also a negative to GDP. So you put those two together and you get the first decline since 2022. Now, when you dig into the report, there were other factors here that are a little bit more mixed. Consumer spending slowed, but it was still positive. Business investment was also still positive, although part of that was driven by, again, trying to beat the clock on tariffs. There is what's known as core GDP. That number held up in the most recent quarter. So when you put it all together, it does paint the picture of an economy that is facing almost unprecedented pressure from tariffs. I talked to economist Greg Dacko a few moments ago, and he said, look, he doesn't think that we can call a recession from this data alone, but he said this is a sign that we are on razor-thin edge, where the longer tariffs remain in place, the more likely we are headed for an economic downturn. Linda?
And speaking of an economic downturn, Matt, we saw those polling numbers out yesterday that show that the majority of Americans fear that a recession is likely. Given this latest data, does that increase the chances?
Well, what's notable is obviously that CNN polling that predated this GDP report. And so you got to wonder, how numbers like this are going to factor into consumer psychology, because this is only going to amplify those concerns, not just among economists, but also consumers. You see 69% of adults in this poll that was taken very recently in mid-April, 69% say a recession in the U.S. is likely in the next year. Just 30% say it's not. Yes, Democrats are more pessimistic than Republicans, but
Well, they've been talking about recession for what, 4 or 5 years now? Every time, well, in a couple of months, we're going to experience recession. Next year, there will be a recession. Same thing every year.
almost 40% of Republicans, of Trump voters, 40% of Trump voters also think that a recession is likely. And so the risk, of course, is that in a consumer-led economy where consumer spending is the engine of growth, that numbers like we just got today are going to only encourage people to hunker down more, and they're going to potentially decide to spend less money, save more. Maybe that means they're not taking that vacation, they're not buying that car, they're not going out to dinner. And so there is a risk of a self-fulfilling prophecy where consumer demand goes down, businesses lay off workers, and that causes more market turmoil, and it can become a negative feedback. I do think, though, that we should just stress that it is way too early to say a recession is inevitable. The technical definition of a recession would be back-to-back 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. But that's just a technical definition. In the United States, officially, recessions are declared by a group of economists at the National Bureau of Economic Research. And what they look for is a sustained and widespread drop in economic activity. So not just negative GDP, but they would be looking for stuff like a real decline in manufacturing, a loss of jobs, a decline in consumer spending, and we really don't have those indicators yet. Of course, the question is what happens next? And a lot of that is going to be decided by how long tariffs stay high and how high tariffs impact the psychology of not just small business owners and CEOs, but of course consumers as well.
Breaking this morning, brand new numbers just out on the state of the economy, giving us our first major glimpse of the impact President Trump's sweeping agenda is having. And it's throwing things into reverse. A key report showing the economy shrank during the first 3 months of the year. The GDP declined at an annualized rate of 0.3%, the first drop in 3 years. A live look at the stock futures right now, and you see them reacting, all of them down less than 30 minutes from the opening bell on Wall Street. We'll likely hear more about this from the president when he convenes a cabinet meeting later this morning. CNN's Elena Treen joining us now from the White House. There were some expectations that this wasn't going to look good, but this is particularly bad. Any initial reaction that you've heard coming out of the White House yet?
We have not heard anyone from the White House or the Trump administration respond to these new numbers, Sarah. But as you mentioned, I do think, of course, he's going to be pressed on this by reporters when he convenes a cabinet meeting later this morning around 11 a.m. And just to get back into that, I mean, it contracted the GDP for the first time in years. And this is something that many economists were warning about, particularly, of course, given the concerns among consumers, but also businesses in the fallout of the tariffs that the president has implemented on different countries. Now, I think there's no, it's no surprise that right now one of the central challenges facing the president and his White House is the economy. You know, as he's been taking a victory lap around his 100 days in office, the economy is still a key point of frustration for many people behind the scenes here. And part of that is because, again, the tariffs and the response in the markets, but also from other countries, is not really where they want it to be. And you see some of that in some of the public comments you're hearing from some of the president's top economic advisors, from Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and others. They are under immense pressure right now to try and give some sort of good news as it relates to the economy. That's why you're hearing them try to tout a potential deal, a trade deal with India. They say that it could be struck as soon as this week or next week. They're trying to tout other deals and other conversations that they are talking about with countries, but we haven't really seen any tangible results yet from the tariff
paths that the president has laid out. And so, again, a key frustration here. Now, one of the key areas, of course, that this is most concerning is as it relates to China. I mean, as of now, it's clear that the president has not been talking with Chinese President Xi Jinping when it comes to this. And it doesn't seem like there's been any real significant talks with Beijing on how to get out of this escalating trade war with them, while China, of course, appears to be dug in and willing to wait out the United States on these tariffs. Now, the president was asked about this last night during an interview with ABC News. It looks like we don't have the sound, so I'll just give you some of that exchange. Essentially, the president said you don't know whether or not China is going to eat it. He said China will probably eat those tariffs, pointing out that at 145% tariff on Beijing, they basically can't do much business with the United States. What the president was essentially trying to say there, Sarah, is that at such high duties that China is facing right now from the United States, they believe, the United States, this Trump administration believes, that China will ultimately need to buckle under that pressure. And what we heard the president kind of do throughout that interview with ABC was reassure Americans that the economy will ultimately even out, even as he's been saying even recently on social media that Americans need to hang on, and noting that there is still going to be some short-term pain during what he calls this transition period.
It will be hard to reassure Americans when they're looking at these numbers. Elena Treen.
Is going on for sure. A lot is going on. Thank you for tuning in. If you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe. If you haven't double tapped your screen to like this video that you're watching right now, please like this video that you're watching so the algorithm can know that people enjoy this content. But with that being said, also turn on your notification bell. And if you haven't joined the memberships of this channel, it is $4.99. It is an open conversation channel. We do not discriminate. We don't, I mean, some people get blocked, but it's very rare to get blocked on this channel right here. We rarely block you because, I mean, we know everybody isn't going to support Trump, and everybody isn't going to be a Democrat. Everybody isn't going to be a Republican. Everybody isn't going to be an independent. Regardless of what you are or who you are, the most important thing is you can have a conversation without being physical. Okay, you can have a conversation without, being hostile. So that's what we do here. And when you try to be smart, we got it in our pocket too. We can dish it out when you try to be, not nice. So with that being said, God bless you guys. I want to say thank you to a member of the channel on the chat right now. Shout out to Luke. He said 4 pancakes. Well, I already messed up the pancakes, Luke. I already messed up the pancakes. I put the pancakes in the oven because the only thing that I actually know how to cook is chicken. Okay, I can make chicken. All right. And that's it. I didn't even know pancakes goes in a pan. I put that shit in the oven. Like, what? Because I saw it on the pack. Is that, preheat the oven to 375 and then put in. I'm like, so yeah. God bless you guys so much. Thank you. Do you want to keep going or should we just pack it up right here? Okay, let's see if we could do one more. Because every time I try to end it, it's like something comes up. Every time. All right, let's see. Every time something comes up. All right, let me see this one. All right, here is a poll. Well, not a poll, but Frank Luntz actually um had a Zoom meeting with Trump voters, Republican voters. And I want you guys to listen to what the voters are actually talking about, like real life voters. Listen to what they're talking about. Because most people would say, well, Americans don't like the tariffs. Well, listen right here. But it said the MAGA special. Oven in it. Pancake in the oven. I mean, jeez. Yeah, I did. I put that baby in the oven. All right, here we go. Come on. Where are you at?
And that has
All right, listen to this.
need to ask you an issue that no one's brought up and that has crashed your 401ks, most of you, which are tariffs. Stock market is way down.
It needed a correction.
Oh, so you support it?
Yes. You bet.
Yep.
How many?
And I have to tell you,
how many?
my 401k wasn't impacted at all.
How many? First off, how many of you did not lose any money over the drop, over the crash of the stock market? One individual, two people. So,
Absolutely.
Serena
The
and
Biden
Joe.
administration, I lost more money than the Trump administration by far.
In 2020,
Like
in 2022, they crashed it
40%
by
or more.
25%. Yeah. For the whole year.
No one's upset over this?
No.
Nope.
No.
Nobody.
There's not a
there's an end
single
game here, though.
40-year period in the history of the stock market where the stock market hasn't appreciated at an average rate of about 7%. It's so, yeah, there's ups and downs and corrections, and sometimes people are foolish and they jump out, buy high, sell low. But if people just get in and stay the course, they'll be just fine.
Yeah, and I was about to say, I'm not a day trader. I try not to look at it very often, which is, I think, a good thing. But I also trust that Trump and all of his advisors that are involved with the tariff issue know what they're doing. So I'm just going to hang on. I know it'll correct at some point. Yeah, I'm not really worried about it.
I think
the agree.
how much more are you willing to pay for products and services that come out of China? How much do prices have to go up before you say, this is not that great
I'd
a
rather
strategy?
not buy from China. I'd rather pay more money and buy American.
Same.
And prices only go up if demand is inelastic and if there's no alternative supplies. And they're doing a brilliant job. They're surrounding China with countries that want to manufacture stuff as well. And we do need to bring the stuff back, the strategic stuff for sure. But China is going to be in the soup if they don't knock it off.
Every article of clothing I have on is probably made in China, Malaysia, or somewhere else. Okay, retailers, give me something made in America. I'd gladly buy it, but it's not there. Go to Walmart. You ain't gonna find jack shit pair of socks and underwears made in America.
Made in China.
Maybe. But, shoes, Nikes, Pumas, they're all overrated. They're probably all made overseas. How many American shoe companies have you seen go kaput? There used to be one 30 miles down the road, made Stride Right, made great shoes. You don't hear from them. China, Malaysia.
We need a correction. We just need a correction. We're
We
willing
need
to
a
take
correction.
whatever
To
it
ride
takes.
it out.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Stay the course. Stay the
It's
course.
Exactly.
Stay the
It's been
course.
a rough 2 weeks, but guess what? We got 3.5 years to worry.
Exactly.
And if it's like this in a year, I'll have another discussion maybe, but I don't think it's going to be.
Wow. These are actual voters who voted for Trump. And they're like, you know what? I don't mind. I absolutely don't. I mean, listen to what this lady said.
I'll tell you, they're all overrated. They're probably all made overseas. How many American shoe companies have you seen go kaput? There used to be one 30 miles down the road, made Stride Right, made great shoes. You don't hear from them. China, Malaysia.
We need a correction. We just need a correction. We're willing to take
Willing
whatever
to
it
ride
takes.
it out.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Stay the course. Stay the
It's
course.
exactly. It's been a rough 2 weeks, but guess what? We got 3.5 years to worry.
Exactly.
And if it's like this in a year, I'll have another discussion maybe, but I don't think it's going to be.
I'll tell you what.
And stay the course.
She said, even if it's like this in a year, maybe she's going to have a discussion. Maybe, even if it's like this in a year. But then she said she doubts it. One thing is for sure, the first 100 days we saw Trump start dialogue with all of these countries to renegotiate trade deals. Hence, the tariff came into play. And then he's trying to end this war between Ukraine and Russia that he had nothing to do with. Happened under Biden, but now he has to solve it because he's now the commander in chief, and this is his problem as of today. So if he can find a solution to Ukraine and Russia, I believe like 60% of his hard work is done. If he can find a solution to Ukraine and Russia, because that's going to bring oil prices down because Russia plays a big role in oil. Okay, Russia plays a huge role when it comes to oil in the world's economy, and as well as Ukraine too. So, well, Ukraine plays a big role in grains to the United States. So, the war between Russia and Ukraine, ending that dispute plays a big role. I mean, we could say, well, it's not our business. We could just go do what we want to do as Americans. However, oil prices, oil, okay, oil is a global commodity. Okay, so it's really almost impossible for the United States to determine the price of oil. Okay, this is a world commodity. Okay, it's a global trade. So every country has to be on board without all this chaos going on in the world. And this is why people voted for Trump to end the war, secure the border, bring down inflation, which is already down, by the way. The border is already getting secured. They're saying 99.9% the border is secured. Only 2-3 people crossed the border. Never happened before. Prices are going down, which nobody ever heard happen before. When prices go up, they never come down. But under Trump, they're coming down. So it's going to take time. Of course, he said, well, I'm going to end it on day one. I mean, come on. Day one? Really? No. Okay. Because all of this problem happened over time. There's no way you could come in and end it in one day. You could start negotiating on day one, which he did. But, I know there was no way you could end it in one day. But he was campaigning. Of course, you say what you got to say to win an election. However, has he started dialogues? Has he started doing the things he promised, exactly what he promised on the campaign trail? Absolutely. Zelensky was in the Oval Office. Trump went to the Pope's funeral and he had a meeting with Zelensky. So he's actively trying to find peace in that region. The border, everybody knows the story about the border. Inflation, everybody knows inflation is down. Well, if you follow it, interest rate, mortgage rate is down. So everything he promised he was going to do, he's already doing it. And the bill hasn't even passed, which is going to, solidify the taxes for all Americans. Well, most people would say, well, he's only going to cut taxes for his friends. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Somebody says absolute W for the host. Yes, sir. All right. I love you guys, man. I got to go figure out how to make these pancakes, okay? God bless you guys. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never, ever give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in God. God bless you. Thank you to the veterans. Thank you to the military personnel. You guys protect the homeland. And shout out to Mr. Busky. And God bless you to Luke. God bless you. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody in the chat, God bless you. C. Shelley is definitely not here now, but thank you to C. Shelley as well. And everybody, man, from Ellie to Dana, everybody, every single body. God bless you guys. I love you guys. I'll be back here today because we are going back to back. Okay. We're back. Okay. I've been grieving, still grieving. It's hard, but I don't want to put my problems on you guys. We're here to have a good time, pass out information, learn together. And as Americans, Be patriots. And that's it, okay? Life is hard, like I always say, but just day by day, you may see the end. You may see the light at the end of the tunnel. But even if you don't, just have fun, man. Have fun. All right. See you soon.